Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
The sun was blazing down so hard that even her breath was getting hot. She had long wanted to hide in the shade, but she couldn't afford to show weakness in front of her friend. Turning on her other side, the girl asked Kathy hopefully, "Would you stop roasting?" Kathy didn't even move. Apparently, she was enjoying the process, as evidenced by her cheerful voice. "Emily, stop whining. Go Okuniv if you're too hot. At the same time, check on our champagne." Emily got up lazily. "You're right. We should take a dip. I have my doubts about the champagne. I wonder what they are." Kathy assumed an incredibly difficult body position that shocked her friend. Kathy misjudged the strength of her voice and screamed as loud as she could. "Kathy, how did you do that? That's something you only see in the circus. Why'd you kick it out like that? You're gonna break something, aren't you?" Kathy didn't expect her friend to react so violently, and she flinched. Her body instantly returned to its normal anatomical position. "Emily, what are you yelling about? She wants the whole village to come screaming at you. If you don't understand why I do this, I'll tell you why I do it. I do it to get an even tan. Do you know what they use in the city to identify hillbillies?" Emily randomly said, "I know which one I'm going against. Here's not guessing at a specific tan. Farmers mostly sunbathe while walking in the field, so they only tan their backs and arms, and their legs a little bit." Emily shrugged her shoulders in confusion. "Sure, that's a useful observation. But what good is an even tan to us? We're going to the city to get a job, not to show off our good looks." Kathy sat down and adjusted the towel underneath her. "Don't you think we'll meet some guys in town and they'll invite us to the beach for a vacation? And when we take off our robes, we'll reveal a picture that will shock potential suitors. You know what? Going out in public with a tan like that, you should just get a tattoo on your forehead. I'm from the country." Emily tried to object. "What's wrong with being born here?" Kathy grinned. "And cite the famous proverb, where you were born, there you are useful. It's all nonsense. It hasn't worked on me for a long time." Having expressed his opinion, Kathy turned his attention to his flushed flanks. "I think I'm a little burned out, and therefore it is time to urgently take remedies." The girl looked at her friend, who continued to stand beside her. And already the commander with such a tone ordered Emily, "Why are you frozen? Get the champagne. This is the best remedy for sunburn." The face of her friend took a suffering expression. "Kathy, maybe you shouldn't get divorced in this heat." Kathy also gave her friend a look that she could do just as well. Soon the splash of water was heard, and then the satisfied voice of Krakova. "Kathy, the idea of Kunis is such good water." Admirer of a beautiful tan muttered under his nose, "Before I have enough in this ditch any disease to pick up. There are leeches crawling here and other nasty things." Emily repeated her call. And this time Kathy and cheerfully answered, "Let's have champagne first and get in touch. And afterwards I might follow your example." Emily returned with a gripping bottle of cold. "To open myself, I do not know how to open." "I didn't doubt your limited abilities. It's for that reason, friend, that I'm trying to change your dreary existence. After all, the city life compared to the village cosmos, only there you can feel human." The girl masterfully coped with the opening of the stubborn dish, and Emily again gave her an admiring look. "How do you do it so skillfully?" Kathy poured the bubbling drink into disposable cups. "I worked in a bar there at one time and learned the art. To be honest, life in the city isn't sugar, and not all newcomers are welcome either. I mean, the city's accepting. Believe me, in those 3 years since high school, I've been so loved by Emily with the same old subservience." Reached out to Kathy. "I believe you. You're my best friend." Kathy held out her cup. "Then let's toast to our clear friendship." The thirst was so strong that the girls emptied their cups in one sitting. Kathy reached for the bottle again, but Emily stopped her. "Look, don't get so excited, or my head's going somewhere. It'll pass. Champagne has a short-lived effect." Emily looked at her friend with respect. You talk as if you drink this noble beverage every day. Kathy was silent for a while, and then slowly stretching the words, said, I with my girlfriend not only drank champagne every day, but once took a bath. Come on, honestly, you know I never cheat. The girls were quiet for a few moments. Each of them was thinking about her own thoughts, and especially Emily at this moment did not want to disturb the flow of pleasant thoughts. She already imagined herself in a jacuzzi, where instead of water bubbled champagne. And all this idyllic scene takes place in a luxurious city apartment. Emily interrupted her sweet dreams. Yesterday you asked me why I didn't apply after high school. Yeah, I did. I asked you that yesterday, and you gave me some bullshit. And tell me honestly, what's the point of going to school? Emily yawned. What did you do to me after the champagne? I can tell you one thing about the benefits of studying. Today you can't get anywhere without a diploma. I'm not the heiress of an oligarch or at least a governor. Your moms can't get enough of you either, trying to hold on to your youth. My dad's a hard drinker, but I still went to college and got at least some profession. By the way, Maria also studied to be a chef, and she has no one but her old grandmother. Kathy burst out laughing. Our incomparable fool has found someone to cite as an example. And where does she work on Peter's farm with her diploma? During the sowing harvest, our farmer opens a canteen to feed the working people, and he recruits women for seasonal labor for joy. Temporary work for a trifle. And I heard from Anna that Peter's going to go bankrupt soon. You see, even businessmen make bad businessmen from the countryside. So there's nothing for you to do here, Emily. Unless you get a job painting roadside bollards and bus stops. There's no other fate for your painting diploma. Emily mumbled. Yeah, I guess you're right. Well, I'm afraid Kathy spanked her friend would make her back blush. He who doesn't take risks doesn't drink champagne. The girl divided the drink into cups and prepared to drink it. But something caught her attention. She pushed Emily with all her might, and she let go of her glass from her hand in surprise. Kathy, be careful. But her friend didn't let her speak again. Emily, look, there's an unknown object moving towards us from the village. I wonder who's going to disturb the rest. Emily stared at that point too. What was Kathy looking at? It took her only a couple of seconds to find out who dared to disturb their privacy. So it's our dope. Have we sadly done our head in? Now he's going to tell us about his grandmother. Noticing her classmates, Maria quickened her step. She waved to the girls from afar. Hello, girls. As the water is not optimistic, answered like steamed milk. Are you going for a swim? Maria approached their parking lot and stared admiringly at Kathy. Kathy, I didn't recognize you. Kathy grinned. That's good. That means I'll be rich. And you, Maria, haven't changed. Where are you going? I'm going to pick sorrel. Grandma asked me to. She loves sorrel. Kathy said with undisguised sneer, good food and healthy. We won't keep you to Grandma's errand. Yeah, but I'm off then, go Maria. Good luck to you. They watched in silence as Maria moved farther and farther away from their rookery, when she was already a decent distance away. Kathy said with exasperation how primitive it was, and yet someone likes such squalor. Some of them spilled the rest of the champagne. You mean Sam? He's not even out of this world running after this lunatic. You know, even gives her flowers. They're all over the flower beds at the village hall. Emily was well aware that Kathy had a crush on Sam back in high school. True, the son of the district officer paid no attention to her. He was openly courting Maria. I wonder how long this amorphous romance will continue. Kathy's bouncer suddenly revived. And does not Maria reciprocate him? After all, such an enviable beau. Emily made a funny grimace. She won't let Sam to himself closer than at arm's length to Anna. I was told in the store that Maria, at the expression of guys at other girls, he does not want to look. So the caring grandmother is actively seeking an antidote to the conspiracy. We have such passions here sometimes. Kathy shrugged her shoulders as if she wanted to shake off an invisible weight. You tell me so fascinatingly, as if I had come here to visit. Listen, friend, I just had an idea. How would you feel about taking Maria with you? The girl's dying of boredom out here, and I don't think she's getting much at the field canteen. And in the city, there are so many prospects from such a profession as a cook. Kathy spoke with some incomprehensible excitement. So Emily looked at her friend with surprise. Why do we need her? Just for fun. And then, in a small company, there should always be a person responsible for the comfort of the others. It seems to me, Maria is optimally suited for the role of a caring cowgirl. She's the kind of person who's happy to take on that kind of responsibility. Cranberry thought to herself after a short pause, said with a sigh, "No, this is definitely a diff number. Maria won't leave her grandmother." Kathy held out her hand with a guy, "I'm breaking it in, Granny. I had her walk her granddaughter into town." Emily looked at her friend's hand and hesitantly held out her own. "It's a hopeless gamble. Time will tell what we're betting on." Emily wasn't sure, mumbled, "Let's go for a bottle of cognac." Kathy poked, "I suggest we put a case of champagne on the line as well." Emily was certain that Maria would not budge. She firmly clapped Kathy's hand visibly. They switched to more pleasant topics. Under the sun, the champagne hit the girls' heads hard, and they were up to their necks by the throats or songs. Engrossed in the girls' vocal creativity, they didn't notice Maria walk by. At first, Maria wanted to approach her former classmates. She was eager to ask Sasha Kathy about life in the city, but seeing the state of the girl, she changed her mind and hurried to the village. Despite the brain-burning heat, and drank champagne. The school chums did not forget about the bet they had made. Already the next morning, Kathy dropped by Emily, but since she had not cooled down after yesterday, Emily didn't realize at once what Kathy was implying. There were so many different things that happened yesterday. For example, the neighbor's pig ran away, and Betty had had her plow stolen right out of the yard by an unknown villain. Kathy squealed. Emily's already thin lips don't pretend you don't understand. I'm asking you directly about our argument without innuendo. Do you remember the bet we made by the river? I'm interested in this question. Do you still want to put on a great show, or are you going to back out? And what else? She never backed down, and I will also go to the end. The girl said this slogan quite cheerfully, though her eyes no longer had the fire of yesterday. She looked at her friend pleadingly. Kathy, maybe we shouldn't have this argument. Imagine if we had to put up with Maria for a few months. She's like a drag, isn't she? It's tedious and monotonous. But she'll be the one to pull chestnuts out of the fire for us. And that's worth putting up with her company for a little while. But if you don't want to continue this sociological experiment, we can cancel the bet. By mutual consent, but you do realize you'll be considered the loser. So that leaves you with a case of champagne. Emily very emotionally remarked, Kathy, did you come up with these rules yourself? Tell me, do you have the same attitude towards me as you do towards one? You consider me as a guinea pig too. Kathy wiped more on his eyes. How could you think such a thing? You're my closest friend, but you know all about that. Let's not make a big deal out of it. Let's go over to Maria's right now and talk to her. Okay, let's go. Kathy was the first to jump out. They clung to her reluctantly. The village, a novelty, occupied an area equal to an urban settlement, but the whole inconvenience was that it stretched for several kilometers along the river. The terrain was in places, and therefore the trek from one end of the settlement to the other took a decent amount of time. The logistics were also affected by the water barrier. Therefore, villagers for a long time used all possible means of transportation, including boats and even homemade rafts, to simply go to the store or visit relatives. Few people risked using the bridge, which did not inspire confidence because of its dilapidated condition, because an important issue needed to be resolved quickly. The girls dared to cross the river on the emergency bridge, and after only a quarter of an hour they were already at their destination. Miranda, Maria's grandmother, was in the yard when the unexpected guests arrived. Good health to you, Miranda, an elderly woman back, and you girls do not know any Roba. Kathy took over as negotiator. She winked at Nikita and burst out. Yes, we to Maria business is very important there is. You can call her. Miranda went to the wicket and pushed back the heavy iron bolt. You come into the house and talk to her there. Maria is just cleaning up, and there's no need to shout. I can hear everything perfectly well. The landlady's remark did not embarrass Kathy in the least. The girls thanked her for her warm welcome and followed her into the house. Maria was genuinely happy to see the guests. Oh, girls, be careful, because we're in a mess. I didn't know that my grandmother and I would have guests at such an early hour. You must be here on business. Although Maria was not beautiful, her cornflower-colored eyes were incredibly powerful. When she looked at her friends, they involuntarily moved under her gaze. Therefore, they immediately answered the question. This time it was Emily who entered the dialogue. Yes, Maria, we have a business to you for 1 million, or maybe even 2. We wanted to offer you to keep us company for the duration of the labor shift. Emily briefly recounted the gist of the matter. Of course, she made up a little for the colorful network. But even this subterfuge did not convince Maria. The girl plunged into reflection, and her classmates did not try to speed up the thought process because they were afraid to scare the game away. Of course, Maria had no idea what role was assigned to her by her former classmates, and she really wanted to try her luck in the city. Secretly, she herself had been making such plans for a long time. She could not take her household on her grandmother's shoulders. So after a long pause, Maria answered very calmly, Girls, thank you for the invitation, but I cannot leave now. Maybe in winter it will be possible, when there will be less work at home. And now, Emily. The guests did not expect to be rejected so soon and were ready to say goodbye. Miranda suddenly intervened. She was in the next room and therefore heard the whole conversation. The woman turned to her granddaughter Maria. Do not hurry to refuse. Think carefully. I think you should take advantage of the offer of girlfriends. You see, in the village with work is very bad. Peter's business is going to go under today or tomorrow. What will we do then? We'll sit and grieve for the winter again. We'll eat potatoes all by ourselves. Maria's cheeks are flushed. Yes, I'm aware of Peter. We're all talking about his company going bankrupt, but nothing's gonna change until the fall. Grandma, I can't leave you in the middle of the season. And who will take hot lunches to the field? Miranda shook her hands, thinking that I was the only one. There's no one else in the village to feed the men. At least I'll go. You've written me off as an old woman too early. I'm only 65. And nowadays, that's no age for a woman. Visitor rejoiced at the unexpected support, and in two voices began to convince Maria. You with your specialty in the city can get a job at least in a cafe or even in a respectable restaurant, and you will always be fed. You will also earn money. Miranda said dreamily, we should buy a new TV set, because the old one doesn't turn on very often. That was the most convincing argument. And Maria agreed. Kathy immediately called someone and said that she would bring 2 school friends with her. She proudly said to the invisible person she was talking to, Alex, you said you needed a good cook, so I found a great specialist in borscht. And we cutlets. That girl has no bad habits and is single. Kathy disconnected the phone and happily announced, girls, 2 days to pack and we'll leave. Ignatievich promised to book us a good room in a hostel. Where? Kathy replied with a chuckle. A hostel is something between a dormitory and a hotel. The conditions are even better than in some houses. It's new to us. 2 days flew by like 1 hour. Miranda tried to prepare herself morally for a long separation from her granddaughter, but she had no idea how hard it is to let go of the person she raised from diapers. No one saw off her friends, and the old woman kissed all 3 of them and wished them good luck. At their station, the train stood for only 2 minutes, so the conductor dazed the girls. Come on, girls, jump into the carriage, or you'll be left behind. The girls with laughter and jokes dragged their suitcases and bags into the vestibule. Maria's eyes glistened with unsolicited tears. She sent air kisses to her grandmother, even as the train slowly pulled away. but the train was gaining speed with every second. The girl was already shouting at the top of her voice, "Grandmother, my beauty, I love you. I don't miss you more than anyone else in the world. I'll be there very soon." Miranda stood on the platform for a long time, gazing where the fast train had disappeared only a minute ago. 2 hot rivulets shot down her cheeks, but the woman did not notice the tears. She whispered softly, "Maria, my dear granddaughter, beating adversity." Buses to the village in the evening did not run, and Miranda decided to walk home. But no sooner had she left the station than she heard a familiar voice from behind. "Stop." The woman stopped, but did not turn around, because she recognized Anna's nasty voice. Anna was breathing noisily, but it did not prevent her from talking on the move. "What a motherfucker. She turned on the 4th speed like a sportswoman, and I can't catch up with you." Miranda couldn't stand Anna, who was considered the village's chief storyteller. "She's pretty cold. Ask her, and what need made you run after her like I didn't borrow money from you, and you don't owe me anything." She stopped her unfriendly tone, gesticulating vigorously with her hands. She asked her friend snidely, "History repeats itself. What are you talking about?" Anna danced on the spot. "And your granddaughter Maria also went to the city for happiness. So did her mother. Look, Miranda, don't let her bring you a hem too." Anna appeared as if from inside her. The devil's power was spreading. "Why did you let the girl go with the goddess's daughter? Don't you know what heroics Kathy was famous for in town? The women said she worked at the club and was a man's girl." I'm so sorry." Miranda's grandmother spat and wanted to say something else, but Miranda rudely cut her off. "You saw her dancing on Anna," and shook her head negatively. Miranda kept stepping on it if she didn't see it. "Then why are you wasting your breath?" Grandma Anna moved on, but Miranda kept up. "Am I not telling the truth? Did your Anna, for example, give birth to a girl by her lawful husband?" "No, she took a baby out on the town. They say that bad things are inherited. Your granddaughter could do the same." Miranda sharply turned around, and from here the crow old Chevaksar. "Of course, the child. It's better to follow your grandson. Look, he is more likely to you. She makes illegitimate granddaughter, because she gets mixed up with anyone." Miranda shook her hands up in hysterics. "It's all hearsay. Our Sam is smart and decent. He graduated from an institute, not like your granddaughter. You're the one who's jealous that he doesn't pay attention to your Maria. That was out of line. And Miranda has also changed to a more understandable Miranda and language for grandma. Yes, your Sam was pissing all the corners near our house out of grief, because my granddaughter pays no attention to him." October Pavlovna didn't expect such a turn. She wanted to say something scathing, but from nervous shock, she lost her breath. With her open mouth, she began to greedily gulp air, and Miranda feared for her life. "Maria, what's gotten into her heart? Should we call the paramedic station?" Miranda finally got over the shock, staring out of her eyes as she washed ashore. "Fish," she said in a hoarse voice, "fuck you and your granddaughter and the paramedic." The elderly scandalized woman for convincing once more savored spit on the road and walked past Miranda. But apparently, her ego did not give her rest, and stepping back at a decent distance, "She is a skilled medium," shouted. "If there is justice in this world, God will put everything in its place, and then we will see Anna." She never said what she wanted to see in the future. But Miranda was glad that the evil Silenko got off her back after the exchange of barbs. The woman still had a bad feeling in her heart. Miranda was a secretive person by nature. She never complained about her troubles and sorrows, which would have been enough for several human lives. Having lost her parents early, she alone put Miranda's 2 younger brothers on their feet, and even in her younger years she took on any kind of work, and hard work. She was respected in her native village. For many years she headed the brigade, and later she was transferred to Grain, where she worked until her well-deserved rest. One day the brigadier noticed the young combine operator Nick Maria and began actively courting the girl. Almost 2 years they met, and then quietly signed. A year later the couple had a boy, which Miranda in honor of his late father named James. After another 4 years in the family came a girl-favorite father. Young parents gave all their strength to work. They really wanted their children did not need anything. Nick was especially far away in his dreams. Miranda, I want James and Wendy to get a good education. They will study and settle in the city and live in an apartment with all amenities. Then they will have families and bring their grandchildren to us for the summer. Miranda then laughed at Nick's husband to make your plans come true. You need the most important thing. The man has guessed the money without fail. Well, that won't be a problem. After all, you and I earn good money and the cow gives a substantial profit. The woman looked fondly at her husband. Of course, today you can't go anywhere without money. But Nick, about something else. It is necessary that the children themselves want to learn, to then use, so to speak, the fruits of their labors. Our son has no desire for knowledge. He spends his days bumming around. The man optimistically remarked, that will pass. You'll see. But the miraculous transformation didn't happen. James grew older and more out of hand. And in the last year of school, the boy in general threw out such numbers that not only the residents of the Novelties, but the whole neighborhood was shocked. The apotheosis of his activity was a fatal incident, which is still remembered by the old-timers. In April, that is, exactly 2 months before graduation from high school, the eldest son, together with a group of peers, decided to party hard. Young people for courage a little drunk, and James's blood boiled. Guys were about to put on an exciting show. It's going to be an unusual race, and the winners will enjoy the company of the best girls in the world. There were 2 girls in the company who immediately squealed with delight. James was initially confident of his victory, and the unusual competition consisted in the fact that one of the participants sat behind the wheel of a car, and the rest had to overcome the distance on a bicycle. The winner was the one who managed to overtake the car. There was no problem with the bicycles, but the car was more difficult, and James was desperate for a rash move. He borrowed his father's car without asking. Parents were at work, and his father never hid the keys. Therefore, the guy calmly opened the garage. His father often during joint trips trusted him to drive the vehicle, and James was absolutely sure that his venture will not have dire consequences. His younger sister saw through the window and tried to stop him. James, I'm going to tell Daddy. The girl's appearance was not in James' plans, and he shouted at his daughter. Tell him what? That you took the car without asking. James took a swing at his sister, but she backed away from him and resentment receded. But in her eyes she wanted to get back at her brother for being rude. So James changed his tone. Rubberband promised didn't take to the road. Take a little ride on the old tractor, and I'll be back. Lone looked at her brother doubtfully. How long will it take you to get back? About 2 hours. Maybe sooner. You just don't say anything to Mom and Dad, and I'll give you the eternal use of my chips for your silence. James had long noticed his little sister looking at his collection. Her brother's promise made a strong impression, and she shut her mouth. The father was the first to come home from work and immediately found the car missing. He immediately realized that it was his son who had stolen the car and promised to tear off his ears. But the head of the family could not fulfill this promise because the son did not show up even at night. The couple went round the entire village, but did not get any sensible information. Some saw Nick's car, but where was it going? They couldn't say for sure. The parents spent the night without sleep, and it was only in the morning that the lonely girl told under pressure that the elder brother was going to race on the old road yesterday. She saw her mother and father freaking out, but kept quiet because, and really wanted to get her hands on the collection. Miranda and Nick rushed in the direction indicated, but on the way they met the district officer, who took his eyes away, and then reported walking in the woods, found him in the morning. The doctors said there was little hope. He had lost a lot of blood. He was taken to the district hospital. The light faded in the eyes of the unfortunate mother, and she collapsed senseless on the ground. The doctors were powerless, and the 17-year-old boy died without regaining consciousness. The investigation lasted several months, All participants of the accident in one voice claimed that James himself was to blame for the incident. The guy was inexperienced, and during the chase he snapped on a turn in the quarry. The fall from a great height turned the car into a pile of iron. Having received serious injuries, the driver could not get out of the death trap for a long time. Participants of the dangerous contest instantly scattered, leaving the victim to his fate. The guy lay in the quarry until morning, where he was found by mushroomers. After the death of the eldest son in the Maria family came black days. Nick blamed himself for everything. If I had hidden the car keys, nothing would have happened. Miranda didn't try to change his mind and remained silent. But it was her silence that said that she, too, blamed her husband for the misfortune. This burden was unbearable, even for a strong man like Nick Maria. He began to drink heavily, and one day he appeared on the floor in an unconscious state and immediately passed out. Miranda didn't realize it until the next day. Toward lunchtime, she asked her daughter, "Miranda, go and see how Daddy is doing." The girl ran to her father's room, and from there she screamed, "Mommy, I'm afraid there's something wrong with Daddy. He's all cold." The man was only a few months shy of his 40th birthday. In the news, everybody felt sorry for Miranda. 2 deaths in 1 year. You wouldn't wish that on an enemy. But Miranda could not afford even a moment of weakness because she had to take care of her daughter. And she gave all her love and care to the lonely girl. But the daughter took her mother's sacrifice as the norm, and every day her demands to her parents increased. The girl believed that the mother should fulfill her every whim, but she herself at the same time forgot, even to say a simple, "Thank you." The women at work sympathized with the foreman. One of the oldest workers once told her, "Miranda, you shouldn't spoil your greengrocer so much. Children should be kept strict. You put a crown on your girl's head." The foreman didn't like the experienced woman's remark, and she defiantly said, "You keep your grandchildren in the hedgehogs, and remember, I do not need anyone's advice." No one else on the grain, and did not try to open her eyes to the real state of affairs. And the reality was that it wasn't long before everyone was pointing fingers at Miranda's daughter in the novelty section. Singleton graduated from high school with only 2 B's in her certificate. She easily entered the university, but after 6 months she was expelled for truancy. Rumors spread around the village that Xinu walks with grown men. And one day she herself showed up in a white car with a beau who was fit to be her grandfather. She introduced her mother to her companion as Mammy. "Mammy, meet my boyfriend." Not shying away from her guest, she pounced on her daughter. "Miranda, your beau Emily isn't exactly a beau. He's got sand coming out of one place. What do you need that old stump for?" The girl accused her mother of being an idiot, and together with her daddy immediately rolled back to the snow-white foreign car. But only a few months passed, and she reappeared in the village, but already with a young man. So her mother wouldn't think anything of it. She warned her mother right away. "Mom, this is my producer." The unfamiliar word stumped the woman, but she explained that she was taking vocal and dance lessons in the city and was going to perform abroad, or rather, in Turkish resorts. "Mom, you just don't worry. We have a whole group of girls, and we're not doing anything bad. We're just helping a celebrity perform." Wendy said the name of the artist, but Miranda had never heard of the singer. She tried to find out the details of her daughter's incomprehensible creative activity, but she, referring to the wild business, that same evening left alone. The man did not utter a single word during the whole time, but observing this visit from the side of the village women with certainty said, "Not of ours. This guy must be a Caucasian. Only there they live such a black guy." And Wendy didn't show up for a year. She'd call her mother once in a while, and in a happy voice she'd tell her Mammy, "I'm doing great. Don't worry. I'll be there soon." And her daughter kept her promise. Only the mother was not very happy about her arrival, and it was the ubiquitous Anna who informed her. She rolled into the house without knocking, along with clubs of ice-cold air. Then Mom, your greenery arrived. The woman rushed to the door, but Miranda, as if, by the way, and said, "Do not rejoice before time. It seems your little girl has arrived with a gift," she said, breaking the news. The chief gossip did not hurry to leave Maria's house, but Anna was burning with impatience. She wanted to see the meeting of mother and daughter herself, so that she could tell the gossips everything in great detail. He had a short half-coat of blood which only further emphasized his fading belly. "Mom, here I am." By the confused look in her daughter's eyes, the woman understood everything without further words. "Come in, daughter." Why froze on the threshold? "You're home, and you have nothing to fear here." Anna expected anything, but not such a restrained welcome. After waiting a few more minutes, she got nothing and went home. 3 weeks later, Wendy gave birth to a baby girl. When the baby was brought home from the hospital, the new grandmother took a long look at her, and Miranda took her interest in her own way. "Mom, if you're trying to find a resemblance to someone you know, you're doing it wrong. You don't know Father Maria, and I hope you never find out about him." Miranda was shocked. How could it be like that? A child should have a father. Things happen in life, but there are always two parents. Miranda stared at one point and said angrily, "My daughter doesn't have a father, and I'm asking you very nicely, Mom, never to start a conversation with me on this subject. I wonder how you're going to raise a child alone. I'm not the first. I'm not the last to do it." The loner was determined. True, in her voice did not feel confident. During the whole year of her daughter diligently portrayed herself as a caring mother. She cooked ears, porridge, and mashed potatoes for little Maria. Every day she went for a walk with her. Miranda began to calm down little by little and already dreamed that her daughter would have a better life. During her lunch break, she shared with the women workers. "Many women raise their children without help. A single woman has me. As soon as Maria grows up a little, Miranda will go to correspondence school. And then maybe she'll meet a good man." The elderly coworker, who had earlier advised her to open her eyes with doubt, shook her head. "It's fresh. Yes, it's hard to believe. Miranda, don't think I'm saying anything against your Wendy, but the girl said that she had her husband's husband on her neck, the chief accountant, and a baby's no big deal. When there's an itch in one place, don't let it get out of hand." In the evening, there was a confrontation. Miranda demanded that her daughter end the relationship. "And Wendy, you're not only embarrassing yourself, you're embarrassing me. Think of your daughter. What will people say when she grows up?" The young mom didn't like the tone of the conversation and started yelling at the mother. "Don't go where you're not asked. This is my life, and only I will dispose of it. I'm sick of all this." "What are you sick of?" "Everything. This miserable village, and you, and your moralizing." The high-pitched talk frightened little Maria, and the girl cried. But Wendy did not hurry to calm her daughter. For a few seconds, she paced around the room, and then jumped out into the street. All night she called someone, and in the morning she said, "I found a job in the city, but you realize that with a small child I have nothing to do there." Miranda tensed up. "What are you going to do? Rent a baby home for a while? I've heard that's what a lot of single moms do." Wendy was talking and getting stronger at the same time. The mother's patience was wearing thin. "Stop it. I'm not gonna let you abuse my granddaughter. Get the hell out of here and don't show your face to me again. I'll have your parental rights revoked." Her mother's threats did not frighten the young woman. On the contrary, she was happy and began to pack her things. Miranda watched her daughter and could not believe that all this was happening on his little one. Maria was merrily babbling to herself, paying no attention to the adults. But when Wendy packed a travel bag, the girl reached out to her hands. Mom, Wendy indifferent. What threw her daughter in a bad cheek? "Daughter, Mommy has to go, earn money. When there's plenty of money, I'll come and take you with me, while you stay here with Grandma." And Wendy went all giddy. She hesitantly grasped the doorknob. "Mom, you're not going to give me a ride, are you?" Miranda took the bills out of her purse and silently handed them to her daughter. She wanted very much to stop Wendy at that moment, to ask her to come to her senses, but resentment toward her daughter prevented her from taking that step. For almost 2 years, there was no news from Wendy. Maria grew up, pleasing her grandmother with her little successes. But one winter, just before Christmas, they had a guest, in which the woman did not immediately recognize the producer Leo. The man came into the house and sat down on a chair without invitation. With a barely perceptible accent, he said, "Miranda, unfortunately, I have come to you with bad news. Wendy is gone. She's dead." The woman joined the wall to keep from falling. "How dead? I've never even had her with a cold. You must have conspired and decided to play a joke on me." Leo said just as flatly, "You don't joke about things like that. Wendy had the flu, but she didn't want to be treated, and the illness gave her complications. I don't know much about medicine, but what a severe form of pneumonia it is. Where do you want to bury your daughter?" Leo helped Miranda with the funeral and left her a decent amount of money. Saying goodbye, he said, "If you have any difficulties, give me a call. I have to tell you that I loved Wendy, but I couldn't leave my family. We have very strict laws." It was only when the taciturn man left that Miranda realized she had never asked him about her daughter's occupation. She never showed up again, and she didn't try to find him. Miranda decided to devote the rest of her life entirely to her granddaughter. She protected the girl from bad rumors and harmful influences as best she could. Her grandmother told Maria different stories about her dead mother, and the girl believed that her mother was an artist and toured the country. Maria sat in the waiting room and stared blankly at the people who ran past her with suitcases and bags. She, too, had to urgently determine what to do next. But Emily could not solve this difficult task. The obsessive thought that was beating painfully at her temple prevented her from concentrating. You know exactly what Kathy represents, and you trusted her anyway, now reaping the rewards of her foolishness. The new unfamiliar life that had begun so fabulously that summer evening when her school friends had invited her to go out on the town with them was suddenly cut short. All the way the girls discussed how they would work. Maria was full of hope and made the most fantastic plans and hopes for the future. The very Alex whom Kathy had called at the time welcomed her with open arms. "We need a cook. I hope you know how to bake pancakes." Maria nodded happily and wanted to tell him about her cooking skills, but the man hastily stopped her. "I would love to hear about your accomplishments, but I have such a job that every second is precious. You'll tell me everything on the spot. This place is private and reputable, so you're gonna go for your medical exam, and then we'll get you properly registered." Maria had never been to a big city before and was confused. "But I don't know anything here. I would like to be together with the girls." Alex frowned his eyebrows unhappily. "Your girlfriends will go to work elsewhere, but you will live in the same room. I've already arranged everything." Seeing that Maria still hasn't moved, the manager said doomedly, "Well, what is it? Do I have to lead everyone by the hand? Okay, now we'll think of something." Wait, a little in the corridor was not less than an hour, and Alex again invited Maria into the office, where opposite him sat a girl and wrote something quickly. "Maria, hear you about the counselors together past the commission, and then come here." Only in the evening, tired and hungry, Maria got to the hostel. Emily and Kathy had already settled in the room and greeted her with enthusiastic shouts. "We've already lost you. We're starving," Maria muttered unhappily. "Then you should have cooked your own food." Kathy lazily got up from the bed. "Oh, why should we waste our energy when we have our own personal cook? Maria, let's make a deal. Emily and I keep order, and you cook meals for 3. Deal." Maria didn't suspect anything wrong and agreed to this arrangement. She only asked about groceries. "How much we'll buy with?" "We'll fold." Emily answered that question. "Of course, as soon as they give us an advance payment, they immediately discount 100. And you buy your own groceries." A day went by, then a week. But the girls still hadn't contributed their share to the common purse. Emily, almost crying, said one night, "Maria, you have no idea where Kathy and I are. We're fined every step of the way. You can't even go to the bathroom. Maria, you buy everything and we'll reimburse you later." Maria got up at dawn and prepared breakfast and lunch. After the labor shift, she could not feel her legs, but in general her hungry friends were waiting for her. If in the first 2 weeks they almost every day remembered about the debt, then at the end of the month they forgot about the fact that they lived at someone else's expense. Maria could not wait for the end of the shift and thought that she would never contact her former classmates again. But the last day of the month came, and the commandant knocked on the room. "Girls, today is the last day. Let's pay your rent real quick." Kathy started crying again. "Oh, we didn't get our paychecks today." "Tomorrow," the commandant. "I've been keeping up." "That's your problem. If you don't pay today, I won't let you in tomorrow. You have an entrance." Maria went to her wallet. "Okay, girls, I'll pay for you, and you'll give me everything tomorrow." The friends read happily. "Maria, we'll pay you back every penny, and we'll even add on the commission. Have you gotten your settlement yet?" "Yes, but to be honest, I expected more." "So you didn't like the job?" "No. I'll look for another place. I made a conspiratorial promise I'll keep quiet." "Here's to you." He always has something interesting in store for his friends. Maria decided to take a shower before going to bed. When she returned to the room, her friends were already gone. On the dining room table was a note saying goodbye to the market and a fiery hello to Grandma. Swayed under Maria's feet, she felt uneasy and decided to check her purse, but there was not even a trifle there. The girl shouted in despair, "Bastards, all raked out. What am I going to do now?" She still had hope that Alex would agree to extend the contract with her. And in the morning, she went to her former place of work, but there was already a new employee in the kitchen. The girl went to Alex, but he was not there. She went back to the hostel, but the commandant didn't let her in. "I've already put other tenants in your room. If you want, I can offer you a one-person suite. It's empty, but you'll have to pay in advance," Maria begs. "You let me in, and I'll pay you later. I just don't have any money right now." "Where'd you put it, sweetheart? You just got your paycheck yesterday." The commandant stared at the girl, frequently blinking her eyelashes, on which mascara hung in pieces. Maria dejectedly said, "They took away all my money, not even the change left." The woman's face flashed like a torch. "What insolence! Are you saying that we have criminals here? Well, get out of here, and don't show your face to me again." To evict undesirable dwellings, the commandant used not only words but also brute force. She began to push the girl out the door of her establishment. Following Maria out flew her suitcase and travel bag. She was caught with it and zipped out. The girl, right at the entrance, checked her things and knocked on the door. "There's my pot left in the kitchen. Give it back, please." 5 minutes passed, and someone's hand threw a dish rag through the window. Maria picked up her belongings and wandered to the bus stop. For the first time in her life, she was riding public transportation without a ticket. But surprisingly, she was not tormented by remorse. The girl's brain was working in emergency mode, trying to find a way out of the situation. In such a state, she almost fell under the wheels of a huge car at the station. Saved from injury was the fact that the car was moving at minimum speed, and only slightly its side was sinking. Finding herself on the hood of the Jeep, Maria screamed with fright, "Oh, Monty!" The driver who jumped out of the car jumped on her. "Where are you going? You're stupid. You're still carrying your suitcases. You've dented my whole car." The indignant driver could not stop and said everything that the culprit of the accident thought. Probably he would have talked for a long time. But the flow of swear words was interrupted by a respectable-looking man who also got out of the car. He calmly, but rather strictly ordered the driver, "Ethan, don't shout. It is not worth attracting unnecessary attention." The driver, excusing himself, pointed to the dent on the hood. "Zach, look what she has done. At whose expense are the repairs?" "Repairs are nothing. The main thing is that no one was hurt in the collision." "Young lady, are you feeling all right?" Maria didn't realize the question was addressed to her. Only when the status passenger of the Jeep repeatedly asked her how she was feeling. She quietly said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. Please excuse me. I was just thinking and didn't notice your car." The traffic jam didn't last more than a minute, but for city traffic, that's too much time wasted on all sides. The klaxons sounded at different harmonies and Maria hurried away from the scene of the collision with the Jeep. She ran to the station without turning back, and an inner voice reproachfully told her, "Well, almost hit by a car. You should be more careful. This is not a village with only one road." As the girl still hadn't decided what to do next, she made her way to the waiting room. After sitting for 2 hours in a fruitless search for a solution, she wanted to call her grandmother to send her some money for the trip, but the cell phone gave no sign of life. The girl muttered annoyingly, "Damn, I forgot to charge it yesterday." By the evening, the human flow increased and many future ex-passengers went straight to the buffet. Very quickly, a decent coup formed there. Maria was suddenly struck with an idea that seemed worthwhile to her at once. She picked up her luggage and headed towards the buffet. The crew was bubbling with indignation, as everyone thought that Maria was trying to break the strict order and "Comrade is not where you go." "What are you, special? Get in line." The barmaid also shouted at her, "Girl, have a conscience. You shouldn't be so eager. I'm not going to serve you without waiting in line." Despite the threatening shouts, Maria still came to the counter and looking straight in the eyes. The barmaid said, "Auntie, I don't need your pies." The barmaid was puzzled. "Then why did you push your way in?" "Let me help you. I'm a general cook and I know how to do everything." The caterer got suspicious. "And why did you suddenly decide to help me?" "I need money for the road. They took my money." She did not have time to tell about her trouble because the barmaid agreed with the siren. "Stephen, come to the buffet immediately." A policeman came out of the ground. "What's the problem?" The aunt nodded toward Maria, who was still smiling naively. "Look at this young swindler who got money from me." Maria could not believe her ears. She swiveled her head, expecting support, but the whole line was on the side. The barmaid. Somebody even shouted, "Get that sheep out of here. People want something to eat, and she's making a circus out of it." The policeman took the girl under his arm and politely offered to come with me. "Why? I didn't do anything wrong. I just offered my help. Come on, we'll sort it out." The girl tried to free herself from the clutches of the policeman, but all her attempts were in vain. The polite tone of the station orderlies changed to rudeness. Stephen even shouted at her, "You can get 15 days for resisting. It is better to behave quietly and do not kick." Unkind premonitions, nauseous, and a wave rolled to the girl's throat. And at that moment, the very man from the car Maria fell on appeared. "What's going on here?" Stephen immediately recognized this man and began to explain to him with subservience. "Zach, this is the girl. You were money to me, so I was obliged to stop this activity." The man grimaced. "Tell someone else about your vigilance and responsibility. I know who does this kind of activity around here." While the senior lieutenant was thinking what to answer, status to the young citizen Zach, and in a commanding voice ordered him to let the girl go. Maria felt the policeman's hand clench. Zach lifted the girl's suitcase. "This is your luggage." Maria nodded affirmatively, and her savior confidently followed to the exit. The girl did not immediately notice that he was followed by the driver who had recently called her all sorts of names. She had no choice but to follow the men. Thanks to her grandmother's and Maria's upbringing, she had learned in her early childhood that one should not get into a car with strangers. One should be especially cautious with men. Zach inspired confidence, so for the first time in her life, she disregarded these rules. However, getting into the car, the girl asked where we were going just in case. The man half-turned to her. "And that's for you and me to decide. But first, you will tell me what happened to you." Maria briefly told how she and her friends came to the city to earn money and how her classmates robbed her when they found out that she came from the village. Zach rejoiced. "But I, too, grew up in the backwoods. It was later that I was brought to the surface of the turbulent stream. I started my life in a small village. Of course, life there was not sweet, but it left many memories dear to my heart. You know, we had a separate schedule, and everyone took turns for a day or two to become deeds. The man smiled and continued. I remember how during one such duty I was examined by a sleeper, and while I was dozing on the grass, there was a cow missing. She had a bright name, Carmen, as they say now. The owner called her that for fun, because the cow had a temper. Suddenly, Ethan, the driver, spoke up. I hope you found it. Zach advised the driver. You watched the road. I didn't find the cow, and my father beat me with a belt, so I couldn't sit down for 2 weeks. But Carmen showed up at night, so the punishment was unfair. The master showed him his fist. There was silence in the Jeep for a few minutes. Maria guessed that Zach was thinking about how to help her. She hesitantly said, I'll take any job. I can even clean. We'll decide that tomorrow. In the meantime, sleep at my house. This decision sounded like an order, and the girl obediently followed the man to the house, which was located in a village not far from the city. They were met at the entrance by an elderly woman, whom the owner asked, Show this young lady to her room and feed her. The woman silently led Maria to the second floor. Here is your room. I'll bring dinner a little later. Maria, in a day tired from worries, so much that at once fell unconscious and sleep, and she dreamed something, but she remembered nothing of the night's adventures. In the morning, she was awakened. A woman brought her breakfast on a tray and told her Zach would be waiting for you in 15 minutes in the lobby on the first floor. Maria felt like a movie heroine caught in a fairy tale, and she wanted very much to enjoy the comforts of a rich house, but time did not allow her to relax. Swallowed 2 fresh pieces of toast and a cup of coffee. She hurried downstairs. Zach was already waiting for her. Good morning, dear young lady. I've been doing some research at my leisure, and I can tell you that there's been some progress in your complicated case. As the man spoke in the old-fashioned manner, the girl could hardly understand the meaning of what he said. She tensed and waited for her benefactor to say the main thing. And that moment came. Zach's rejection lingered and continued his speech. Perhaps you, Maria, will not like my proposal, but at the moment there is only this option. My sister-in-law the other day calculated her cook and now in search of a new worker. The girl was delighted, exclaimed, I agree. Zach made a warning gesture. Are you in a hurry? You didn't let me get my point across. This is a very important and perhaps key point. The fact is that my daughter-in-law's temper is, to put it mildly, not tolerable. The servants in their house don't last more than 2 or 3 months. Maria again optimistically stated, I can take it. I'm very patient. If so, then let's go meet your new employers. Zach dialed a number and clearly said, David, be home. Bringing you a new cook. No, it's better to send somewhere for a while. She scares the girl. A very young girl of about 20. The girl felt a little uncomfortable that she was being discussed in her presence, but she pretended not to notice this tactlessness. They drove the Jeep again. Only now Zach himself was behind the wheel. On the way, he talked a little about his son. David, my son is a professional athlete. He is a track and field athlete. He even took part in the Olympics, but won only silver. He really wanted to win gold, but a serious injury prevented him. So he had to say goodbye to big sports. He was going to go into coaching, but he didn't find himself in that field. He decided to follow in my footsteps, and I want to say that my son turned out to be a good businessman. But he didn't have much luck in his personal life. The man was silent, realizing that he had said too much. Maria realized that it was not in her position to ask questions, so she remained silent. The journey took a little more than an hour, and Maria was completely immersed in her unhappy thoughts. She shuddered when Zach announced, But here we are. The house of the businessman's son was so grand that Zach's own cottage looked very modest and pale in comparison. The owner of this estate also made a strong impression on the girl. He looked to be no more than 30 years old. His trim figure spoke of an athletic past. David first greeted his father warmly, and then turned to the girl. Don't be afraid, they don't bite here. "Do you think that love lives in this bakehouse?" It was said with pomp, and Maria especially remembered the last words and liked the expression about the house where love lives. It was then that she realized that she too wanted to live in such a house and give her love to a man who reciprocated it. But then that phrase took on a very different meaning. While I was talking to my father, Maria was looking at the young businessman's home with interest. In the middle of the tour, David's wife appeared. She politely said hello to the light, and then asked, "Well, where is it? A country wonder who can cook." Zach called out to the girl, "Maria, come here." Vanessa made it clear that she was the one who decided everything. Maria timidly looked at this young, well-groomed woman and froze, waiting for the decision of her fate. The hostess began to look at her as if she was not a living person, but a museum piece. But apparently, she was completely satisfied with the results of the examination, because she asked more gently, "How do you like our house?" Maria stammered and answered that it was great. Vanessa liked the answer and invited her into the kitchen. "Then come with me, and I will show you your workplace. I hope you like it too. Aren't you men bored yet?" The kitchen was astonishingly large. The hostess watched the expression on the girl's face intently, noticing that this room caused her to admire it as well. She remarked rather peacefully, "And I'm not used to prying into people's souls, so I won't bombard you with questions. The main thing for me is the professional qualities of my employees. Don't take offense, Maria, but we are going to arrange a small exam for you. Prepare a few dishes that you do best with what you have in the fridge." The kitchen at Zach's house was equipped with the latest technology. Maria knew how to handle those appliances and quickly prepared dinner. Zach was very worried about his protege and decided to stay for the tasting. Maria passed the first test successfully. This could be judged by the empty plates on the table, but it was important for her to hear the opinion of the strict hostess. Vanessa appeared in the kitchen when Maria was getting the dishes. The hostess was surprised. "There is a dishwashing machine in the house. Why don't you use it?" "I don't really trust machines. It's more reliable to wash by hand." "Please, how do you prefer?" The hostess sat on the poof. "I must admit, you've made me very happy. Everything is delicious, hearty. But I must tell you that from time to time I'm on a diet, so on such days you'll cook for me separately." "Okay, if you say so." Vanessa grinned. "Maria, you always agree with everything." "Not always, but I think the master's words are of paramount importance. You have the right attitude. We might even become friends. You can't imagine how boring it is. Living here, having fun has long since become boring. I want new acquaintances and bright impressions, but that's off limits for me for now. The fact that my husband and I are waiting for the appearance of the little one." Maria's lips stretched in a smile. "How great that you will have a baby." Apparently, the young mistress really longed for live communication, so she revealed all the secrets to the new cook. "You know, we had a few years of nothing, and we decided to Vanessa. You've heard of this method." "Of course I have. But it must be very expensive." "You guessed it. It's not cheap. But what can you do to make a family happy? My husband is delirious. He's dying to have an heir. And I have to agree. Otherwise." Vanessa did not say what awaited her if she did not fulfill her husband's demand. She left the kitchen, leaving the young cook alone with her thoughts. Maria was pleased with her first day on the job. She especially enjoyed the frank conversation she had with her mistress before going to bed. She was carried away by dreams of the distant future. She saw herself as the mistress of a beautiful house, drowning in flowers, and next to her was a man very much like David. Although Maria had a little life experience, she knew that it was better not to flash before the eyes of the owners. So from morning until late in the evening, she spent her time in the kitchen. Meanwhile, the young Zach's house lived its own life. One day, the young couple began to clarify their relations very loudly, and the fragments of their conversation reached the cook. That day, Maria realized that in the family of the owners, not everything is not so prosperous as it seems. David and loudly persuaded his wife, Vanessa. "It's like in sports, you have to believe in your victory, and you after the first failure immediately sour. The woman sharply objected to her husband, David. "I'm sick of you with your sport. Producing a child is not like running a 100-meter race for the best result. Realize that time is running out. I'm 32. Women have babies at 45. Just don't get discouraged." "David, what are you talking about? It's not like we can keep trying." Maria guessed that the hostess was not all well with the pregnancy, but she felt uncomfortable that she was an unwitting witness to their conversation. Trying to remain unnoticed, she crept into the kitchen. A few minutes later, the landlady appeared. "Maria, pour some wine into my glass." The girl darted her eyes out. "Vanessa, but you're not allowed." The hostess curled her lips into a sneer already allowed. It didn't work out with the pregnancy. Such bad luck. For almost 2 hours, the woman complained to the cook about her fate. During this time, she emptied the entire bottle and was about to start a new one. But her husband stopped her. "Vanessa, you're at it again. Go to your room to rest." The man took his wife out of the kitchen for the slightest of wine, but soon returned back. "Maria, you don't think anything of the sort. It's just that my wife is going through a very difficult time." "David, I don't think anything of the sort. In fact, what do you care what's going on in the head of an ordinary cook?" The landlord thought for a moment, and then agreed. "Indeed, there is no difference." The man nervously squeezed and then clenched his hands. "Excuse me, what to burden you with unnecessary conversations, but I just don't have anyone to share it with." "Do you have a wonderful father?" No, not at all. I can't even discuss such delicate subjects with him, but you can with me." "But I'm a complete stranger to you. That's the best part. You won't tell anyone about our family problem." "Of course I won't. What's the point of all this? I'm a simple cook and my business is to cook quality food." David's revitalized in that regard. "You, by the way, you're getting top marks. You're a really good cook and even Vanessa praises you. Sorry to interrupt your work. I'll go check on my bandits." The master left the kitchen. The short conversation with him made Maria think about David's words when he talked about his wife, and felt no warmth. Vanessa did not show any fervent feelings for her husband either. And this mutual indifference of young spouses was felt at a distance. In the girl's head ran the thought incomprehensible. Why these people lived together? And they call their estate the House of Love. Love was not even close to being here. For about a week, Vanessa didn't come out of her hiding place. Maria brought food into her room. The landlady demanded wine every time, but David absolutely forbade giving her a drink. Caring for the unfortunate woman suddenly brought the master and the cook closer together. David came to the kitchen more often, and he was no longer as sad and withdrawn as before. Once he looked in on her out of habit and suggested that you had been living in our house for 3 months. "But I've never seen you resting. I would like to offer you a walk through these lovely places." The girl was confused, but the owner encouraged her. "Oh, come on. I promise I won't lead you into the dark forest. We'll just walk around a bit. We'll talk." "Vanessa, why is Vanessa nervous?" The man suddenly laughed. "I completely forgot that you adhere to traditional principles, which do not provide for any relationship between a married man and an unmarried girl." Maria became ashamed of her red thoughts, and she assured her host that David, I was not thinking of anything like that. I just have a lot of work to do. And for dinner I was going to cook fish according to a special recipe. You'll have time. I promise it'll be a short walk. The air here is unusually clean. And in the fall, this place looks especially fabulous. All girls dream of being in a fairy tale, so I'm offering you a little magical journey. David told her about his sports career and his father's business, and she listened to him with interest. Maria found it easy and pleasant to communicate with this man. In the evening, she was going over the memory of the walk with her host and felt happy. A few days later, David again invited her for a walk, and she gladly accepted his offer. Soon the walks in the park became regular, and the girl more and more often caught a glance from which her heart beat purified. She drove away from herself, the thought that behind her master's attentions lurked something other than ordinary politeness. But what disconcerted her most of all was the fact that Vanessa was indifferent to the rendezvous between her husband and the cook. At the end of October, the host announced that his wife was going on vacation. You see, Maria Vanessa has been through so much in the last few months. The stress has taken a toll on her health, so we decided that she needed to rest. The girl didn't understand why her master was telling her all this, and only agreed with him. She watched as David accompanied his wife to the airport. In the evening, he came back tired and went straight to the kitchen. "I've seen off my princess frog. Now I'll be waiting with you for her return. But I'm sure we won't be bored." Maria didn't say anything. It seemed strange to her again that her master was being frank with her. And in the evening, a strange uneasiness appeared, but the anxiety disappeared without a trace when the man invited her for another walk outside the house. Maria had always felt more secure than in the mansion. This time they walked longer than usual, and David behaved more relaxed with her. When they came across a creek, he lifted her in his arms without asking her consent and carried her across. The strong embrace of the man made the girl's soul tremble, but she could not and would not resist what was about to happen. At night, David opened the door to her room without knocking, and she could not utter a word out of excitement, only squeezed her eyes shut tighter. For the first time in her life, Maria woke up in the morning in a man's arms. David was still asleep. She admired his masculine features for a long time. Perhaps her gaze was too intense, because the man stirred restlessly and murmured, "You're a fantastic girl. I'm not looking for. No one has ever been as good as you." Those words were tantamount to a confession, and Maria realized that she had been in love with her master for a long time. She did not want to think about the consequences of a forbidden relationship. She wanted to enjoy the happiness that fate had given her so unexpectedly. 2 weeks flashed by like a day. Vanessa returned from vacation, looking beautiful and tanned. Maria did not immediately notice that her hostess was looking at her intently. The girl tried to ignore these looks and avoided even casual encounters with her master. But after a few weeks, she realized that the thing she feared most had happened. She had become pregnant by another man's husband. The realization of her sinfulness was so strong that Maria went blind. Her ill health caused a real commotion in the house. The first to worry was the landlady Vanessa, who entered her room warily and sat down on the edge of the bed. "Maria, did you scare us? I've called our family doctor. I want him to examine you." The girl was in a panic. She realized that an experienced doctor would immediately determine the cause of her ailment. "Vanessa, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a little tired. No need for a doctor. You'll be fine tomorrow. We'll see how you feel tomorrow. In the meantime, you rest. My husband and I will have dinner at a restaurant tonight." The next day, Maria got out of bed with all her strength in her fist. But as soon as she entered the kitchen, an attack of nausea made her run to the bathroom. She wet her face with cold water, hoping it would help relieve the note. From somewhere in the back of her mind, a thought broke through. What are you going to do? Soon enough, it will all become visible, and you'll be put out on the street in disgrace. The girl realized that she had to tell Dmitri about the pregnancy, but she was very afraid of his reaction. But the meeting did take place. David appeared in the kitchen. He was in a good mood and immediately asked Maria, "How are you feeling? To be honest, you don't look too healthy." The girl was afraid to look him in the eyes and mumbled, "I'm all right. You needn't worry so much about me. But we're humans, not beasts. Although beasts are probably more worried about their tribesmen than humans, they are more likely to show selfless kindness and care. And I'd like to follow their example. Look outside the window. You see how beautiful the weather is." Maria realized what the master was getting at and refused. "No, not today. I'm in no mood to go outside. The man insisted you should get some fresh air. Otherwise you're in the kitchen. Why are you huffing and puffing?" He spoke deliberately loud. And the girl realized that Vanessa was aware of everything that was going on in the house. She obeyed her master's wishes without much reluctance. "All right, and I'll get ready now." Autumn air really had a beneficial effect on the girl. They slowly passed the entire alley strewn with yellow leaves, and they were silent. The first to break the silence. "David, Maria, I want to know what's going on." Confidence left the girl, and she burst into tears on the chest of her beloved. "David, I don't know how it happened, but it seems," and she expected anything but what followed next. The man drew her to him and began to shower her face and head with kisses. "Do you have no idea how happy I am? This is the most joyful news I have been waiting for so many years." Maria gently pulled away, but Vanessa how to tell her about it. "Don't worry, we're good. This is a matter I will decide myself when the time comes." Maria calmed down a little and began to wait patiently for the denouement. But the days flew by and nothing changed. One day during a walk, the girl asked me how soon we would become noticeable. "I can't live in ignorance. Don't rush things. The main thing is, don't think about anything bad. It's just not the time." And again the monotonous days and weeks dragged on. Maria's figure became noticeably rounder. It was no longer possible to hide the pregnancy. Vanessa appeared in the kitchen, as always, unexpectedly. She sat down on her favorite. "Maria, if I'm not mistaken, you're pregnant." The young cook almost fainted, so the hostess had to pick her up. Vanessa reproachfully remarked, "Why are you so overreacting? I'm not asking who the child's father is. I am not interested in such details. I'm concerned about something else. Where will you and the baby go? Do you think your grandmother will be happy to see you like this?" Vanessa mimed a non-existent belly and stared at the cook. "Why don't you say something? Maybe I want to help you." Maria could barely squeeze out, "How can you help me?" "Good for you. Our conversation is becoming businesslike." "That's a good sign. I think I'll have some wine." The hostess herself took out a beautiful bottle from the refrigerator and splashed some ruby liquid into a glass. "Now we can get down to business. You are very young, and you still have everything ahead of you. That's why you don't need a baby right now. A baby would just tie you down. And you know my husband, and I have a problem with that." Maria shook his head. No, I won't give him to anyone for any money." Vanessa stood up and wanted to hug the girl, but she came back. The landlady looked at her contemptuously. "Before 3, you'll be begging me to spare you the embarrassment. Think carefully and weigh the pros and cons." Vanessa left the kitchen, but her voice continued to echo in the unhappy girl's head. She didn't know what she should do. Now that her secrets were out in the open, there was no one to consult with either. Her inner voice told her that she should run away from this house sooner, but she couldn't make up her mind. David asked her to be patient. He said he would decide everything himself. She trusted this man. With such calm thoughts, Maria fell asleep. In the middle of the night, she woke up with an unbearable feeling of thirst. Barefoot, she went down the stairs to the first floor and was about to open the kitchen door when she noticed a streak of light coming from below. Anxiety took hold of her again, and she wanted to go back to her room. But from the kitchen came the voices of the owners. Vanessa spoke in a loud whisper. "David, you did the right thing, though you could have warned me. The thought had crossed my mind more than once, but I was afraid you wouldn't agree to it. Only later, when this knave fool appeared in our house, I realized that it was our only chance." Maria held her breath and waited for her master's reply. But what he said defeated her some more. David tried to change his wife's mind. "Vanessa, first of all, I can't do that, and you misunderstood everything. How else am I supposed to understand you? Are you really a serious businessman who is infatuated with this country girl? You're the one who can tell her fairy tales. I haven't believed in them for a long time." David was silent for a long time, and then he asked me how you were going to carry out your plan. "Very simple. The baby will be born, and we will take it away. You are the father, and you have every right to decide and teach your child." "Maria, what are you going to tell her?" "I'm not going to explain anything to that girl. I'll kick her out if she starts something against us, which I doubt very much. No one will believe her anyway." Maria wanted to scream, but she covered her mouth with the palm of her hand so that not even her breath could be heard by the owners. The kitchen became quiet again, and then David hesitantly said, "I need to think about it." Maria heard footsteps approaching and hurried to hide. She could not hear the end of the conversation between the couple. She began to pack her things. In a moment of danger, the instinct of motherhood kicked in. The young woman began to look for ways to save herself. During her time in Dumazak, she had well studied all the entrances and exits. She was not frightened. The night raged outside with bad weather. She threw on her cloak and stepped carefully to the back door. In a minute she was already on the street. This time Maria had money. All she had to do was get to town. When she left Zach's house, her first inclination was to go to Zach for help, but she immediately dismissed that thought, imagining the eyes that David's father would look at her with. After all, she had confused and broken the taboo with a married man. The only way out was to return to the novelties, and Maria went to the train station. She bought a ticket at the ticket office and began to wait patiently for the train. Somewhere in the back of her mind was the hope that David had already discovered her absence and was searching for her. She imagined that he would show up at the station and tell her that what she had heard was not true. But the hands on the big station clock moved inexorably forward, and the man she had foolishly believed in, he never showed up. Soon boarding was announced, and the future mother hurried to the platform, and it was frightening to imagine how her grandmother would meet her and what they would say about her in the village. She settled down on the bottom shelf and, stroking her belly, whispered silently, "And why are we small? You and I will be fine. People judge a little and calm down." That's how Vanessa dreamed, only she had a snake's head. The mistress reached out to her with tentacle-like hands and demanded that she give me the baby. "It's mine." Maria struck at those hands, but her blows didn't reach the target. Someone started to shake her. "Girl, wake up. You're scaring the whole carriage." Maria opened her eyes and didn't realize where she was. The conductor advised her, "Would you lie down? It's not very comfortable to sleep in your sitting position. That's why you dream all sorts of horrors." Maria thanked the kind woman for her care and settled down on the bottom shelf. She no longer dreamed of Vanessa's snake hands. She saw her grandmother, who was so habitually busy in the kitchen. "It's all right, granddaughter. What's this grief? Gossip comes like the wind and vanishes without a trace. And so rumors rustle on, and soon they'll be forgotten." The station was not crowded in the morning. Maria only now remembered that she had not eaten anything since yesterday. She went with her suitcase to the cafeteria. The barmaid glared at her with curious eyes and sighed. The girl thanked her and went on her way. At first, she wanted to get to her house by cab, but then she changed her mind. Whatever would happen, there was no hiding anything anymore anyway. The first one on her way was Anna, a nasty old woman, stunned. And when the initial shock wore off, she screamed all over the street, "Look, those people are kind." And the pitchforks poured from downstairs. I told Miranda the bad blood was bound to show. Maria wanted to go around the gossip girl, but she stood in the middle of the road. "So, did you have a nice life in the city?" The witch muttered angrily to herself. But Miranda was just waiting for that. And she's on a roll. "Look, she's calling me names. If I'm a witch, what are you? I'll tell you what you are. A whore." But even this time her words did not reach the target. Maria still bypassed the old woman, while she and the old curses, what her black work grandmother Miranda has already managed to do, and look at her granddaughter Maria and all the free from housework inhabitants of the street. Some went away and aghast, pitying Maria, and some of them snapped at her with barbs. With all her might the unhappy girl tried to hold back her tears, and only when she was on the threshold of her grandmother's house, she burst into tears. Miranda rushed to comfort her granddaughter. "It's good that you came. Your friends have told me so much about you, but I don't believe a word they say. Don't tear your heart out. You can't be upset right now. You can tell me later, and we'll figure out what to do together." Although Maria was still under the impression of the stormy meeting, she noted that her grandmother was saying the same words as the kind Zach, and remembering this man and her shattered hopes, the girl's tears flowed even more deeply. Miranda cost a great effort to calm her granddaughter, but no sooner had Maria a little come to her senses than Anna quietly fell into the house. And I'll tell you this, Miranda, that it was to be expected. Your Maria walked through the village with her head held high, but she came back with her tail between her legs, and you're defending her." Miranda said tiredly, "Who am I defending? You? I don't need your protection. I have a son and a grandson. Now we'll see whose corners." Deceptive. Miranda grabbed a poker and moved toward Anna. She squealed in horror. "You are definitely insane. I'll be sure to file a report on you for threatening me." The door slammed loudly, and Miranda ran down the street. Miranda sank down on the chair next to her granddaughter. "It's okay, Maria. We'll get through this trouble. The main thing is that we are together. Everything else is nothing." The novelties raged for another week or so, and then everything quieted down. Maria in the native house little by little came to herself, but she still for a long time did not dare to show herself on the street. But the voluntary shuddering did nothing to deprive her of the latest news. From her grandmother she learned that Peter's farm had finally gone bankrupt, and the farm was being sold under the hammer. Maria, I saw with my own eyes the new owner, such a representative man. And his car is expensive, all gleaming. Maria was least interested in the future of Peter from the farm. But out of respect for her grandmother, she supported the conversation grandma. "Nowadays, every other man in town has one of these cars. My master and his father also have such cars. They live richly there. They do not deny themselves anything." The girl had already shared her misfortunes with her grandmother. She didn't hide her love story either. That's why Miranda regretfully remarked that you should have run away. You could have demanded alimony from that businessman. Why? Since he's the father, let him help raise the child. Maria grimaced. "Grandma, how can't you realize that they conspired with my wife to take the baby away from me? That's why I ran away." But he didn't refuse the child. On the contrary, he was very happy when I told him. Miranda waved her hands. "God, the world must have turned upside down to see such outrages. I don't understand how a child can be taken away from its mother." Vanessa knew the answer to this question when she discovered the disappearance of the young cook and became furious. In a fit of bad feelings, the woman lashed out at her husband. "This is all your fault, David. I'm sure you let that fool in on our plans, and that's why she ran away." The man was himself shocked by the recent events and asked irritably, "What do you want me to do? Don't you understand? Everything you need to chew and put in your mouth. Try to find your Maria, to persuade her." The man took a long look Pelosi in the face of the woman with whom he lived almost 8 years. "Vanessa, I have another option, and it is much simpler and more rational than yours. I think it's the right thing to do if you and I break up. You can see for yourself that our married life is not working out. You and I are different, like we're from different planets." Vanessa didn't expect such a turn. First, she closed with hysterical laughter, and then began to openly threaten her husband, not even dreaming of getting rid of me. "You've got the wrong woman. If you dream of finding your cook and link your life with her, then I'll make you something you'll forget. Your name." David looked at his wife with regret. "Why didn't I see you before? You are a primitive creature, like a worm or a jellyfish. You can threaten me all you want, but all your words mean nothing to me now. And if you want a share of the business, you might want to curb your appetite, because you're not gonna get anything. We'll see about that." The next day, David discovered his wife had disappeared from the house. Her belongings were still in the same place. The man realized that he had been blinded by the woman's anger and decided to take revenge on Maria. He was very worried about the life of this humble girl. His unborn child had to do something. He perfectly understood that Vanessa, who is accustomed to luxury, will go for anything, just not to change her lifestyle. Of course, with rage she did not realize that sooner or later everything would come to light. Therefore, Dmitri needed to take care not only of Maria, but also of Vanessa, so she wouldn't do anything stupid. He paced the room. As it happened, yesterday he had vowed to help his father with his new business. In his old age, Dad had taken up farming. He had been talking about it for a long time, and he and David had even made some calculations. But David didn't think his father would find a suitable farm so quickly. David wouldn't say that he didn't like the countryside. He did, but on a tour and nature level. He would have supported his father in any case, and after his revelation that he would like to grow old in the village, David said that Dad could always rely on him. Although, by and large, Dad would do just fine without his help. After all, it was his father, not David, who started the business in their family. And David was also taught and guided by his father. They always had a very warm relationship. Mom did not become early, and it brought them even closer together. And now David realized he needed to go to his father for advice. He knew that Vanessa had never liked Dad, but Dad had been very tactful not to interfere in their relationship. David grabbed the phone. "Dad, hi. Where are you?" "Oh, David was just about to call you so you didn't have to come to my farm. I'm back in town because I've got some things to take care of here. I'm gonna go shopping for building supplies." "You're all right. You sound a little worried. I don't know how to say this." "Dad, I didn't need to talk to you. So come over. What's the matter?" "Let's do it at our restaurant in an hour." "Okay, I'll be there, Dad." David knew perfectly well that his father wouldn't pat him on the head for Maria. Moreover, he would scold him in any case, even if Maria herself threw herself on his neck. Now, however, the situation had turned out to be very strange. Only after Maria had disappeared did David suddenly realize that he absolutely had to find her. And he also realized that all this semblance of a family he had was worthless compared to what he felt for Maria, for their future child. "David, how could you? Maria seemed like a very decent girl to me. Or was I wrong?" David shook his head. "No, Dad, you're not wrong. She's actually very nice. So, real. And I think she ran away for a reason. I have a suspicion that she overheard our conversation." "Your conversation? What was so terrible about it?" When David sighed and told me what the conversation was about, Zach even jumped. "David, I can understand your wife's thoughts. I'm sorry. But how could you even think such a thing? By the way, where is Vanessa now?" David sighed. "So she's gone. I'm afraid she's decided to do something naughty, Maria." Zach landed on the chair with a thud. "Then I don't understand why you're here and not at Maria's." "You're about to curse again." "Well, other than Maria being from the village, I don't know anything. She was hired by Vanessa. Vanessa looked at her credentials too. So your husband knows where to find her." David looked up to his father. "Does it turn out that way?" "Shit, I'd overlooked that. We have to do something now. We should have done something right away." "Sit down and let me think." David was quiet. He knew his father was a businessman for a reason. He'd started out not very legally, or rather, not at all legally. He never asked, but he knew that in the 90s everyone was afraid of Dad. It was then that my father literally for a year accumulated his capital, and then on it, and opened several companies. You don't have to be particularly gifted to realize that there was a bad trail of money behind his father's first money. Zach stood up and stood aside. He talked to someone on the phone for a long time, then called again. Finally, back at the table, but now he had to wait. Not half an hour later, his phone rang. "Yes, I'm listening." He listened carefully to what he was told. Then he quickly looked at David and said into the phone, "We'll be there soon." David looked at his father in silence. "But your wife was not so determined. Tell me she doesn't have a drinking problem." "Oh, I see. Anyway, she's at the bar. She's a mess." Kathy and Emily Maria met a month after she arrived. Kathy was hanging on Sam's arm. "Oh, look at that, Marin with a potbelly. Emily picked up on it. Yeah, who goes to town for what? Our Maria clearly doesn't work. The girl first wanted to pass by, but then stopped. But the main thing is that not for that. Why are you here? Do you even realize that you are ordinary criminal? Kathy let go of the hand of Sam, who listened with interest to their conversation. You watch your mouth. What am I watching? You took all the money out of my wallet, left me in a strange city with no money. I didn't even have enough for a ticket. And then you come around here and try to accuse me of something. Maria wanted to leave, but Kathy blocked her way. Maria sensed that Kathy was drunk. No, stop. You have to take responsibility for what you say. Maria realized that this could end very badly. Emily was also looking at her belligerently. Of course, the girls were with Sam, and that made things worse. Kathy, leave me alone, and you can keep my money. Maria took a step to the side and immediately felt a jolt. She couldn't stay on her feet and fell to the ground. A sharp pain shot through her back. She saw Kathy rush toward her, but Sam caught her. You're crazy. She's pregnant. Kathy struggled out of his arms and screamed, I don't care. I'm sick of her for saying that. Emily struggled to get her friend away, and Sam helped Maria up. Let me walk you home. Maria gave him an angry look. I don't need a counselor. Maria walked toward the house. Her back was aching and stiff. Sam shouted after her. Don't think I didn't believe them right away. But Maria didn't turn around. By the time she got home, she was in a bad way. Her back was twisted and her stomach was tight. Maria cried. I wish nothing had happened to the baby. Literally 100 meters from the house, she met a frosty con. Maria, gritting her teeth to herself, told herself not to get involved, to silently walk past. Anna threw her a glance and rested her arms at her sides. Look at her, good people. Fetalized. You don't know where and from whom. She doesn't even think about the child. Ugh. Maria felt her eyes darken. We just have to walk and walk home. There's not much left, just a little bit more. And there the grandmother on Anna and was not going to back down. She overtook Maria and stood in front of her again. What's to see? It's embarrassing. And I told you, the apple doesn't fall from the tree. It's disgusting to look at. Good people, just admire it. People, of course, readily stopped, looked, shook their heads. Maria felt that the pain in her back was getting worse. She wanted to close her eyes and fall down. When she saw her grandmother running towards her at home, showing her handkerchief, Granny, Miranda pushed a paw away and rushed to Maria. Granddaughter, shall we go? Let's go home. Leaning on me, Maria immediately felt better because Grandma was beside her. She took a few steps and sank powerlessly to the ground. I can't. Grandma, my legs won't hold. What's wrong with you? It hurts. It hurts somewhere. Everything hurts. My back hurts a lot. Anna, though, she looked at them with fright at that. Maybe we need an ambulance. People were coming up to them. Few were smiling now. Some woman sat down, looked at Maria. It had been hurting for a long time. I fell down and everything hurt. Maria barely spoke. The pain pierced her with such force that she screamed. Miranda turned pale. The ambulance will take at least an hour to get here, and then an hour back. Look, there goes that new farm owner. He's obviously going to town. Wait. There was a Jeep on the road, though. He was already known in the village. But not many people saw the businessman himself. But who did? They said he was a very nice and polite man. The neighbors rushed in front of the car. The Jeep stopped abruptly, and the driver, and then the businessman jumped out of it. The people took turns explaining to him what he needed. Finally, he nodded his head. The car pulled up beside Maria. She had little idea what was going on. Her grandmother brought a bag with her papers and got into the car. Next to her, the Jeep moved abruptly and silently stared after her. Maria didn't fall down by herself. I saw Sam and Kathy and Emily push her. The girl got hurt, but it's not surprising on such a term. How could they not earn a term now? Anna, and quickly turned around talking. "You hold your tongue. You'll earn a sentence yourself." She picked up her skirts and ran towards the house. The events had played out very strongly. Grandma wasn't ready for this. The news that Sam and her friends almost maimed the pregnant Maria quickly spread around the village. The guests immediately heard the father enter the house. "Sam, motherfucker, come here." Sam came out of the room and looked at his father gloomily. "Why are you yelling? Are you and your grandmother completely dead? What's it got to do with me? I'm going to give you a hard time, and fast. Don't tell anyone. I don't want to lose my job for the son of an asshole and my grandmother." "Maria," I heard a familiar voice. Emily couldn't understand who it was, but the voice evoked a storm of emotion. Finally, she was able to open her eyes. In the front seat, a man was talking on the phone. "Yes, black BMW. We'll be seeing you," apparently explaining to the driver in the ambulance how not to let them pass. The man turned to the driver. Ethan quickly but carefully realized I understood everything, Zach. Maria opened her eyes wider. "No, this just can't be happening. Zach, please don't take my baby." The man turned sharply toward her. Maria, it's you. We've been looking all over for you." Maria cried. "Stop. I won't give you my baby." Miranda looked surprised at Zach and her granddaughter. "Maria, is that the baby's daddy?" "No, Grandma. This is Zach's grandfather." Turn to them. "What kind of nonsense are you saying? Nobody's going to take the baby away from you. Jesus, this is messed up." Started slowing down. "Zach." A man got out of the car. As soon as it stopped, immediately approached the doctor. "Go to the private one." The doctor looked at him surprised. "Who will take us there?" "They will. I'll follow you." The ambulance sirens were blaring ahead of Zach's car. As he followed, he dialed Godson's number. "David, hey. Why do you sound so sad?" "No, I'm fine." "Where are you?" "I'm David. I'm on my way to the hospital. I think I'll meet my grandson soon." There was a pause on the other end of the phone. "Dad, you're okay?" "I'm fine. Maria's having a baby. Well, something happened and she's in trouble. Come to the clinic. Zach's out." They drove to the clinic. Miranda returned by evening to the village neighbors looking out of their yards. But no one dared to ask how things were going. It was as if they hadn't done anything wrong, as if they'd been covered in mud. They attacked the girl, as if no one gives birth without husbands. It's all freezing. It muddies the water. They say the precinct built them houses, and they also say that these girlfriends have very unpleasant things ahead of them. Miranda arrived in the same Jeep she left in. This, of course, caused even more talk in the village, but knowing Miranda, everyone only exchanged news among themselves. In the evening, when it was already dark outside, there was a knock at the door. Miranda went to open the door. The police officer stood on the doorstep. "Miranda, may I?" "Well, at least it's late for visits. I'm not here on an official visit." The policeman waved his hand and sat down at the table. "Andrew, it happened that, how to tell you, Miranda, I probably came to apologize for myself and for the villagers." Miranda looked at him with interest. "Kay, well, wait, I'll make you some tea." They sat opposite each other as Maria. "It's all right, Maria. It's all turned out all right. Zach turned out to be a very good man and sent her to an expensive hospital. And the specialists there are good." The woman didn't give any details. She learned a long time ago not to say anything unnecessary. And always people turned everything in their own way. "I brought money." "What money?" "It's the same money that Emily and Kathy stole from Maria. They should be punished. Young fools. Maybe Maria will forgive them." Miranda shook her head. "Nothing to do with them. She's too soft. And you, Andrew, don't do it for such people." The policeman stood up, looked at Miranda, and wouldn't go. "Blimey. Yeah, she hung on mine. Sam's getting stronger. We're kind of getting married. I wish I hadn't seen them. I already talked to Anna." "Thank you, Miranda. It was 3 days before Anna recovered from the beatings and went out again. She had one goal in mind. She had to punish this family, especially this Maria. She thinks she's a fool and Sam is a fool. She says I'm going to marry her. And I don't care if she's pregnant. He's a fool, all right. His mother put him in his place. Even if it's Kathy, it's not very nice. But at least she was smart enough not to bring him home. That silly slut still has to listen for her. No, that's not gonna work. And they're organizing something for this meeting. She'll remember it for a long time. The first thing Anna did was to find out when Maria was coming. There was no one to ask. So she went to the store. That's where everyone knows. The store was full, so she started from the door. What's the news in our village? What news? You're not here, Anna. There's no news. The woman got angry. Oh, how funny. Where would you all be if it weren't for me? I'm the only one who opens your eyes. People are soaked. You know something new. Otherwise, you wouldn't be talking like that. What don't you know? Maria will be discharged soon. They say she gave birth to Chernenko. People in the store aghast. How Chernenko on Anna under half of them. It's done. She won all the attention. Where did you get that, Anna? What do you mean? From where? From her girlfriends. Did you forget how they talked about her? How she was with everyone, just like her mom. People looked at each other. They'd never seen anything like that in the village before. It's not like Maria is like that. They're all like that. And then they're like that. What's there to think about? Soon she'll be discharged. She'll come, and we'll see for ourselves. It'll be a laugh like nothing we've ever seen in our village. Shame. And with shame. When she's discharged tomorrow, I guess. It turns out Miranda was at the store the other day, picking up some goodies. She said she'd be here at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And what's interesting is that she's not going to pick her up, but Maria is. Oh my God. And there's no one to greet her. Anna and Alive turned to the saleswoman. So what am I saying? That father must have left a long time ago. He doesn't know what's going on here. And this one's still walking around with his head up. What a disgrace. She's disgraced the whole village. But you, Anna, don't bend the village too much. And what about that Anna and the belly turned, saying what's wrong? Have you often seen children like that in the villages? So they'll come to us on a field trip. And you're sure that there is such a child? I'm not sure. Who knows who she was carrying? So I'll go to 3 tomorrow to look and you. And come. Anna jumped out of the store. The main business is done. She gave people food for thought. The woman was sure that all, if not more, would show up at the house to see Maria. Shame. Look at them with their heads up. Ugh. In fact, I thought I should tar the gate at night, like they used to do in the old days. But then I decided that I could get some gingerbread from my relative, and decided to limit herself to a fiery speech. When Maria arrived, she would take revenge for all her words. Miranda looked out the window and raised her eyebrows to the window. Zach came up as well. Whoa, is this the whole Maria meet and greet? Miranda sighed. I wish it was a good thing. You see, it's the grandmother. She must have brought everyone. Emily can't get over the fact that her grandson ran after Maria. She's trying to ruin Maria's life. She can say mean things, ruin her mood. You know, when Maria arrived, she couldn't even go outside for a long time. Then what did they say about her? Zach smiled. I recognize her village. I'm from the village too. Like my grandmother used to say, a village is a place at one end. Someone spoiled the air, and at the other end they already know that they can get their pants dirty. Miranda laughed. Oh, I can't with you. I never thought you could say that. You know, that's what they say in our country too, only in slightly different words. Zach smiled. You don't worry, everything will be fine. And Maria's not alone. What's up with them? Miranda looked at the man questioningly. Well, how can I put this? First Maria cried, then she kicked my son the hell out. Good for you, by the way. You should have said something else. Then she kind of listened. Anyway, they're going together. They are. Really, he called half an hour ago. Miranda was quiet for a minute. I wish Maria would finally have some happiness in her life. Look at this. And David is mine. You'll love it. Miranda smiled. Then she exclaimed, "Oh, look, there's a car." They went outside. There were a lot of people outside the house, but Miranda proudly walked past all of them and stopped at Anna's path and said confusedly who was with her. "Who's who?" "Our new businessman who bought the farm from Peter. I wonder what he's doing here." Anna squinted. It was so unexpected that it threw her off balance for a few seconds. Actually, the businessman shouldn't be here, and he's probably been in the house for a long time without a car. All right, she would think about that later. Now she had to think about something else, because 2 cars were approaching the house, and such cars that Anna even took a step back to rethink what she had just seen. She took a step back and turned around. There was a wall of people she herself had brought here. "You, Anna, go, go, go. We may still have work to do. I don't want him to ask what we were doing here later. The main thing is that it's not clear what he has to do with all this." Anna chuckled. "Nothing. Jesus, he gave her a ride to the maternity hospital. And as a well-mannered man he came, he probably brought her a present." People were gossiping. It's true, isn't it? Everyone began to move closer. I really wanted to see that dark-skinned child. The cars stopped. One car they recognized immediately. It was the car of their businessman, but the other was a stranger from Zach's car. And his driver started unloading flowers and gifts. People were looking. Not bad. So I took one time out on the street, and here you are. How many gifts? Anna smiled. Everything is going according to plan. People are like that. The main thing in the right direction to send thoughts. And then, as usual, she walked, embarrassed to get closer to Miranda. "Aren't you ashamed?" In public, fat, heavy bang. Miranda looked at her in surprise. "Why should I be ashamed? It should be you who should be ashamed of your filthy tongue. That my tongue did not tell the truth somewhere walking. You had both a daughter and a granddaughter. You'll see, and Maria will throw a child at you and only wags her tail at men to hang around. That she has a grandmother husband. No. Walk. I do not want." Zach at first decided not to interfere in this conversation. Then he couldn't stand it. "Come on, Miranda. It's time for you to meet your son-in-law." Anna opened her mouth. What son-in-law? At that very time, a young man got out of the first car. He looked a lot like their new businessman. There were whispers in the crowd about his son. That's his son too, they say. He has a lot of money. David looked at the people with a surprised look and opened the back door of the car. After a second, he turned around. There was a boyish smile on his face and a bundle in his arms. The blue of the power blanket was transferring to the son. He carefully shifted his son onto one arm and reached into the car. Maria stepped out of the car. Miranda rushed over to her, hugging Maria. The grandmother smiled. "Meet David, David's dad." The crowd buzzed. "He's dark-skinned. What's the setup? Where to freeze on, Anna?" I picked up my skirts and hurried to my house. They're all still on crutches. David looked fondly at Maria, then at his son when his father called him. Something turned over in David's soul. He suddenly felt that he was no longer just a man. Now he was a man who was responsible for his family, for Maria, for the baby. He was sure that the baby would be all right, because he could already feel it, even though it had not been born yet. At the hospital, they wouldn't let him in. They told Maria that she was asleep, and no one would be allowed to see her now. Her father had already taken Maria's grandmother away, and David was determined not to go anywhere and leave Maria and her son alone. They tried to send him home. They didn't want to talk to him. Maria. But David was not the kind of man to give up. A month later, the village was talking again. True, the talk was no longer about Maria, but about the 2 pillows with which Maria had once gone to the mountains. The police came from the town, and accompanied by a policeman, they went to Kathy's house. Naturally, An hour later, the whole village knew that Maria was not alone with an empty purse at that time. Now the village was really buzzing. The police came to Maria's house. "Do you need to write a statement too?" Maria smiled. "No, I won't do that. In fact, I'm very grateful to the girls for doing this to me. If I hadn't been alone in a strange city with no money, I wouldn't have met my new family. I wouldn't have William. Give the girls mine. Thank you very much." That evening, the guests delivered those words to Kathy and Emily. Kathy even felt a twinge. Mother Teresa was a blessed fool, and she still is. But that's okay. Now this will all be over, and you and I, Emily, will go back to town. This time, you and I will succeed. The guest looked at her in surprise. "I thought we were getting married." Kathy chuckled. "Who needs you? Your daddy helped, and that's it." She turned to Emily. "So what do you say we go?" Emily shook her head. "You know what, Kathy? You can take offense, but I'm not going anywhere with you ever again. I do not need such happiness and gift. Maybe Maria, and only she is now in chocolate, and we are. You went, friend." Emily turned around and walked towards the house. Sam caught up with her in a second and said, "I'm with you." Kathy jumped up. "Well, bring down the redneck about the wrong one. Here you will twist the tails of cows all your life, and I wasn't born for that." She cursed helplessly, then burst into tears. "Remember, you will still know me, what I will become." But no one heard her. "Maria, maybe stay for a while." "No, I'm going to Grandma. David is getting divorced tomorrow. Need to support him." "Vanessa is very belligerent. I'm already worried. I really don't need it, Grandma. In general, David asked me to talk to you." "Talked about what?" "Well, Grandmother, you understand how you and I will miss you. I understand that you love the village, but maybe you will think about it anyway." Miranda smiled. "No, Maria, I will stay here and wait for you to visit. I just don't know. Zakhar Artem still has to work. I will be in charge of production. You know, it's so nice to know that you haven't been completely written off yet." Maria looked at her grandmother in surprise. "So Granny is 66. How old is Zach? Why is Grandma blushing so much?" "Who's Zach?" 63. They recently celebrated his birthday." In the evening, David hugged Maria and asked, "Why are you so thoughtful? Do you miss Grandma?" "No, it's not that I'm bored." "Say, well," David was waiting for Maria to continue. She didn't know how to phrase it. "Don't you think that your father and my grandmother have some kind of warm relationship?" David laughed. "Well, Maria, do you really think that age chooses happiness? Do you remember how much older I am than you?" Maria smiled, snuggled up to him. "I don't remember, and I don't want to remember. You are probably right. No need to look for some pitfalls where people are happy." David looked at his sleeping son, who was tossing about on the crib, a wife who had already sweetly advised, and suddenly realized that happiness is not just words. It is something so huge that it does not fit either in the head or in the soul. He smiled lightly, kissed Maria's slit, and settled down on the pillow next to her. Let everyone around be happy, because it's wonderful.
Subscribe and click the bell.
Any other woman would have been hysterical, but Lisa didn't even cry. When the door closed behind Sebastian forever, only all the days after he'd left, she'd been tormented by a strange sense of guilt. According to the law of the genre, she should be feeling something else entirely. For example, self-pity and hatred for her husband. But no, Lisa's soul was completely calm, and only sometimes a shallow calm ran through the sea. That unpleasant feeling. She kept thinking about the fact that Sebastian would not have left if she had. And then there was a dead end, because the mind refused to answer the question what I had to do to make him stay. All the last few days, Lisa had been trying to answer that question for herself. She realized that her own life and the fate of her children depended on it. The young woman mentally tried to solve the intricate crossword puzzles, patiently going over in her mind every day, which was remembered by something. The small car her parents had given her for her 30th birthday moved confidently through the streets of the evening crash city. It seemed that she was now driving not a stylish hatchback of obscenely bright red color, but her own life, and everything depended on which way she turned at the nearest intersection. Her hand unconsciously reached for the control panel, and a life-affirming tune blared from the speakers. Lisa began to sing along with the singer in some wild performance. The woman did not have vocal data, but it did not prevent her from singing heartily and even making risky vocalizations. Probably, her miniatures were too loud because passing cars persistently honked. But these signs of attention only added to the excitement. "Guys, I'm fine. I'm fine." From the speakers poured booming sounds, and the accident regretfully said aloud, "Good, but not good enough. I never thought I was capable of doing such a thing. But I'm ready to do it again, and I don't care about public opinion. That's the way I've had to keep it all my life. I've had to look up to the best. I don't want to be second best anymore. I'm gonna prove to him that I'm worth something." This vivid monologue, worthy of the best stage, was addressed to Sebastian. These words must have been on my heart for a long time. But after they were voiced, Lisa felt relieved. Only a sense of her own guilt, pity for the little business trips from behind hid in a far corner of her soul. "It's okay, I'll deal with you. I'm strong." Father from young Nails brought up in his daughter the best qualities. He often told his daughter it's only when she's young. Their life seems endless, and by old age, people consider every day they live as happiness. So try to do good and useful deeds. She didn't understand the meaning of those words. "Daddy, why do that? To keep every day in your memory. You'll remember it later in life. This day I helped an old lady, and the next day I saved a bird. Daddy, when you cheat, is it a good deed or a bad deed?" Such questions of his daughter put David in a deadlock, but he never avoided answering. In general, Lisa thought he was very lucky to have his parents. They were the best people on the whole earth, and every day of her distant childhood was filled with their care and warmth. Funnel was the late child in the family. David and Miranda were already at a ripe old age when they decided to join their fates. Both of them had the first unsuccessful experience of family life, so they met for almost 3 years before applying to the registry office. To the appearance of a new addition to the family, the spouses were also preparing very responsibly. The future mother strictly followed all the recommendations of doctors, and the future father attended special courses, although at that time to such events men were very skeptical. At work, some men even frankly laughed at him. "Our future father is well done. Maybe and give birth together with his wife will go. If I have to, I will. And there's nothing wrong with that." At that time, giving birth together was a novelty among us. So not everyone welcomed such an undertaking, and the male half of the population was outraged by this prospect. Sometimes both husbands and fathers gave such a forecast about this imported innovation that it would not take root in our country. They are all going crazy in Europe in pursuit of equality and freedom. We have other traditions, and everything is clearly distributed. Women give birth, and men bring up and earn money. Although one could argue with the last statement, no one dared to deny the inviolability of tradition. Therefore, David's bold decision remained unfulfilled, and the moment of accidental birth father did not see. However, this circumstance did not reduce the joy of the newly minted father on the last cash. And then the salary was given once every few months. The man hired artists from a house of culture and brought them in a broken-down Giguli right to the house. The mini concert under the windows of the medical facility made a strong impression not only on the young mothers, but also on the staff. Some nurses even wept. From excess of feelings, such love is only shown in movies. What a good man. Of course, Lisa understandably does not remember the events of those days, but my mother loved to tell this touching story. And each time there were new details of her first days of life. When they brought you for the first time for feeding, I was even scared. That day, 8 boys were born and only 1 girl. All the boys are so big-faced and screaming at the top of their lungs. My little girl looks like a Zamora in front of them. You didn't even scream. You promised like a kitten. Although Miranda spoke fondly of her daughter's shortcomings. In her early days, Lisa was not exactly pleased that her mother compared her to an abandoned kitten. It was only later, when she herself gave birth to her first son, Kevin, it became clear that for the mother the appearance of the child does not matter. But life is a very harsh thing, and it does not spare even small children. If for her parents the girl was a miracle, people around her did not think so the first time she faced injustice in kindergarten. That day is forever. In memory, on the eve of the first holiday of spring, children prepared gifts for their moms. In addition to cute crafts, it was decided to please women with a small concert. Educators put together a program and engaged in the distribution of numbers. Then, for the first time in my conscious life, showed initiative. Let me learn a song or a poem. I'm good at memorizing. One of the teachers looked at the child strangely. It's not enough to memorize well. You have to have a pretty face. How about you? Lisa saw another teacher pushing her colleague hard in the side. What are you talking about in front of the child? Nothing out of the ordinary. I'm just used to telling the truth. Let her get used to it. She'll have to hear many times in the future that she looks like a mouse. So gray and unassuming. Of course, Lisa, her 3.5 years old, did not understand the whole meaning of what the educators said, but her memory was really good. When her mother came to pick her up in the kindergarten, she right in front of the teacher who condemned the appearance. The girl recounted everything from herself. The girl added, I was not even given a poem. All the other children were given to other children. And I speak well and sing loudly. And Kelly has a cough. But she's beautiful. And now she will sing the lead song. Lisa cried with resentment. The teacher was ready to fall through the floor in shame. Miranda tried to speak calmly, though her voice trembled with indignation. What kind of castings are you doing here? Who allowed you to cripple the psyche of children? I won't let it go. I'll go to the education department tomorrow. Lisa and her mother were not present at the party. The teacher, who had distinguished herself by her unworthy behavior, didn't show up in their group anymore either. One could rejoice at the triumph of justice, but they still tried to hide behind the backs of their comrades. When it came to important events, she remembered the first day of school life. By this time, the girl has already internalized the rules of human society and did not seek to demonstrate her talents. She by habit dissolved into the crowd of peers, because in the general mass were not so noticeable her chicken ears and colorless eyebrows on her freckled face. The ceremonial ruler passed without a hitch, and she joined everyone in beating her hands joyfully. When a tall high school student carried on his shoulder a first grader who had a symbolic bell in the shape of a big bell in her hand. Of course, in her heart Lisa envied this girl because she really wanted to be in her place. But she realized that with her unattractive appearance it was impossible. When the children went to their classrooms for their first lesson, an unfamiliar boy from the senior class, pointing his finger at her, yelled, "Guys, watch a walking horror movie." Miranda was very afraid for her daughter, but she said with a nonchalant look, "Mom, the boy probably wanted to call me a contestant because I have really big ears. He just mixed up the words. Don't worry. I'm used to it, and don't take offense." Lisa overheard her mother telling her father about the outrageous incident. "David, I'm so scared about the funnel and why everyone's picking on it. Looks pretty normal for a kid to me." "Miranda, don't worry. Your Soar Lisa is the best and the most beautiful, and she's a strong-willed character for a 6-year-old. That's what scares me the most. I'm afraid she won't become violent. There are many such stories when childhood complexes lead to terrible consequences in adulthood. I'm sure Lisa won't have complexes. She is a very bright girl and quickly learned the rules of the game. Appearance is a matter of time. We will see with you the miracle of transformation of an ugly duckling into a beautiful swan." Unfortunately, her father's predictions did not come true, and Kelly never became a beauty. but her unassuming appearance no longer frightened anyone. And by and large, everyone at school did not pay attention to it. The fact that the girl was excellent in all directions, she was sent from the school to the Olympiads in various subjects, and she always returned with a victory. Especially, she remembered the day of the next triumph, when she in the intellectual competition left far behind even high school students. But it was a pure victory. That day was one of the happiest in Lisa's life. The 8th grade student became the pride of the school. She was shown on TV programs and even written about in the regional newspaper. But fame is a short-term phenomenon, and she understood it perfectly well. She also realized finally that intelligence and knowledge are even more important than appearance. On the day of receipt of the certificate, no one remembered the Wright's Reno appearance teachers predicted her promising future. Classmates with undisguised envy looked in her direction. The first beauty of the class, whose certificate was a solid 3, deliberately loudly said, "Lucky some people. She herself is nothing." And it was her who got the gold certificate. Who's the unlucky one? Lisa earned her gold honestly, and you got a second-hand certificate because you're like the dragonfly in Krylov's fable. I envy you. Lisa will be welcomed with open arms at any university. How would you like to get into any mediocre college? The parents watched their daughter from the sidelines, and both cried tears of happiness. "Miranda, what a wonderful daughter we've raised." So many nice words have been said about Lisa today. I must tell you, dear wife, that I have never been as happy as I am today. David, today is also the happiest day of my life. Not even on our wedding day have I felt so good in my heart. There was one more person, or rather a girl, who was sincerely happy about Lisa's successes and sad that she would no longer meet her in the school corridor at the big recess. Such feelings on that sunny June day were felt by Cindy, for whom Kelly was even more than a friend. All people fall into 2 categories. Some are genuinely happy about their friends' successes. Others only pay lip service to such feelings, but deep down they envy and dream of revenge on the lucky ones. Lisa had her enemies too, but all the attempts of detractors to put the excellent girl off balance failed. And when she accidentally discovered a mouse in her school backpack, contrary to the expectations of the organizers of this action, she did not run in. She put the animal in the palm of her hand and even stroked the mouse on its back. Subsequently, the mouse was released by Lisa to freedom. Some giggled behind the girl's back. The fisherman sees the fisherman and the mouse smells the mouse. In simple terms, a man will not hurt his own. Next time, one of the jokers smeared the chair where the best students sat with carpenter's glue. But this adventure didn't work either. Lisa noticed the suspicious glint from afar, and by the tense look of one of her classmates, she unmistakably deduced the author of the prank and addressed him with a request. "Robert, your chair's a little higher. I'm not comfortable in this one. Let's switch." The boy blushed, which the teacher took as a sign of shyness. If a girl asks, a real man has to give in. After that, Robert had nowhere to retreat to, and he sat glued to the table for a whole horn. Then his friends long held him off the furniture, but still his pants could not be saved. After lessons, the Cossacks were waiting for Lisa near the school. "You think you're so smart." Lisa laughed in the face of the Cossacks' loser. "You know about the law of boomerang. That's what you got. You're laughing too hard. Sit down. Next time, we'll have a different conversation. Consider it your last days, and I've turned on the Kozak counter with your math skills. You are sure to say goodbye." The girl laughed again and headed home. She heard Robert shouted after her and clicked. "The one who laughs last always wins. Now it's my turn." In 5 minutes, Lisa had forgotten about her classmates' threats, but 2 days later she had to remember Robert's words. In order to save time, Lisa, like many kids in her neighborhood, walked through a small park. It wasn't a popular place with the townspeople, so everyone tried to get past it as quickly as possible. Lisa also quickened her step when she found herself in the park. She noticed from afar a group of teenagers near the fountain, which hadn't been working for a long time. A group of teenagers. It was too late to retreat. and Lissa didn't allow herself to show any weakness. She quickened her pace even more, hoping to get past the enemy cordon. But Cossacks blocked her way. Well, forces, who are we going to laugh at? The crowd of spectators cheered. Maybe we could bathe her in the fountain. But it doesn't work. Then how shall we punish her? Guys, I've got an exclusive for our best student. You see, there are buildings with the letters P and G. And G. Robert, you're the man. People are hungry for a colorful spectacle. By the time the accident happened, I realized I should have gotten out of here. It was too late. Teenagers surrounded her, then took her under the arms and dragged her through a street toilet. She screamed at one of her abusers, even kicked him in the eye. But the forces were clearly unequal. From somewhere off to the side came Kaya's girlish scream. Then there was the sound of a heavy blow, followed by another scream. But now it was one of the vigilant hordes. Lissa didn't have time to realize anything as the battle cry sounded again, and another offender began to writhing on the ground in pain. The rest of the trio slipped away from the scene. Bavaria looked, round your eyes at the girl about 12 to 13 years old, and could not believe that 2 defeated opponents is her handiwork. The young judoka held out her hand. Cindy paired up and accepted the friendly gesture as, "This is where I from school happen to be. I always walk through the park. So, anyway, I heard you screaming from a distance and rushed over to help. Say, Cindy, where did you learn to do that?" Suddenly the girl was embarrassed. "My daddy taught me. He used to be a champion. But then he broke his arm and had to retire from big sports. He's a coach now. I've been training for 6 years. I'm already a blue belt, and soon I'll be a brown belt." Although Lissa didn't understand anything about sports ethics and martial arts, she stretched out meaningfully. "Great." The girl named Cindy was pleased with the praise. "I've been wanting to meet you for a long time, but I've been hesitant to approach you. And now I'm here. Forgive me for asking why you hesitated to approach me. You're an honor student, and you're a year older than me. Cindy, you're adorable. Does age and other little things matter when people are friends?" The enchanted girl looked at Lissa. "You'll be friends with me. Of course, now I just have to repay you for saving me. You realize I don't mean money and stuff. Maybe you're having trouble in some subject." Cindy jumped for joy. "I'm failing math. I can't get my head around cosine and minus." "Oh, don't feel bad. I'll help you. We can start math class today." From that day on, Cindy became a frequent visitor to the powerhouse. The girls worked out at 2 o'clock every day, and then drank tea with delicious cones that Miranda prepared for them. But most of all was happy David. "It's very good that you have a real friend." The girl corrected her father. "Dad, you mean friend, not daughter. I said what I meant. You see, those words with the same root have slightly different meanings. You can hang out with a friend, talk to her, share your feelings, but only a friend can protect you. This girl, Cindy, is a true friend. I hope I'm not wrong about her." David made the right prediction about Cindy. The girl who grew up in an athletic family had strong-willed qualities and was always open to contact. She never paid out herself, although she also had something to be proud of. Soon about the girlfriends began to talk about a pair of goose. Yes, Gagarin, though both God has offended in terms of beauty, but the ambition above the roof. The girls did not pay any attention to the words. All the more they did not feel inferior. Thanks to good upbringing and clear understanding of life goals, both schoolgirls had already been formed as individuals. Therefore, they treated such conversations exactly as an adult perceives children's mischief. The only thing they regretted was the upcoming separation. But the girls found a good way to remove this obstacle. Lissa applied to Baumanka to specialize in software engineering and nanotechnology. These were completely new directions, and many guys dreamed of getting a profession of the future. That's why, for the first time in her life, Lissa had to fight for a place with equals, because among the applicants there were almost only medalists. There was a treacherous moment when the girl almost gave up. She called Cindy to get some advice from Nato. You have no idea how many medalists there are per square meter. I'm even scared. Her friend answered her calmly. It's normal to be scared. It's bad when people panic. You sound like you're on the verge of despair. I just don't understand why you're panicking. I'm scared too, when I go on the tatami and I don't know my opponent. But that's the philosophy behind any fight. Overcome fear and win. In your case, it's much easier, because you have to overcome your own fear. That's it. Lisa successfully passed the additional tests and was admitted to the faculty. The first year in any educational institution is considered the most difficult, so she spent all her time studying. But the workload, as the student of a prestigious university liked to say, did not prevent her from talking to her friend once a week. During hour-long conversations on the phone, the girls told each other about the main events, shared their plans. In one of these sessions, Cindy joyfully told Lisa, I decided to enter Sekhanov at the Faculty of Sports Psychology. So very soon we will be able to see each other in person. That's great. But what about big sports? You dreamed of winning championships, right? Girl, you're the one who told me I had to be realistic about what I could do. So I did, and I realized that playing for school is one thing, but playing for the country is another responsibility. In short, I'm not up to the highest level, and the term of sports life is too short. So I decided to devote myself to another useful business. After all, to train future champions is also an honorable business. Although in the voice of Cindy slipped sad notes, it was clear that this was the girl's final decision. Lisa decided to cheer her up. Perhaps it's true. You have to plan your life with an eye to the future. And I'm very happy for you. Cindy got into university on her first try, although the girl's grades weren't very good. But the merits in sports played a decisive role. This period was distinguished by another surprising event that brought the girls together. Between their parents, there was something very similar to friendship. After all, common concerns and experiences unite people, like many girls her age. Lisa also secretly dreamed of a big and beautiful love. In her school years, she read popular novels, in which there was more tragedy than happiness. Then for days, the girl walked under the impression of the book she had read. True, she did not share her experiences with anyone. Even with Cindy, she did not speak on the subject. And the reason for this reticence was her appearance. Although Lisa got used to the fact that everyone considered her a dunce, and her being did not want to put up with this state of affairs. Therefore, the girl began to experiment a little bit with cosmetics, and it turned out pretty good. Cindy was very well versed in makeup, and the lessons of her friend went in favor of a moderate appearance. After entering the university, the girl forgot about the fact that her appearance does not meet the standards of beauty. In the first place, it was not up to it here. In the second place, most of the female students were similar to Lisa, and many girls wore glasses with reinforced lenses. It was this circumstance that helped to finally forget about her disadvantage. During one of the meetings with a friend, Kelly decided to touch on the taboo topic. Cindy, you probably have a lot of suitors on the course. You're so fashionable, and you dress boldly. The friend looked at Lisa strangely. Lisa, I'm surprised at your naivety. You're only a year older than me. At our age, a year doesn't matter. That's true. But I didn't mention age by accident. Haven't you realized that life is basically a struggle for a place in the sun? It's a natural selection process set in motion by nature itself. You know very well from school biology that the strongest survive in this process. Otherwise, they just get crushed. In order to get to the finish line, you can use any means. That is why mimicry is widespread in living nature at all its levels, including human society. Lisa looked at her friend for a long time with wide-open eyes and could not come to herself from surprise. Was she really the stubby girl who was good at wrestling? No. Now she saw before her an educated, self-confident girl who could philosophize freely. Cindy, I never cease to be amazed at you. Where did you get all this? You wouldn't believe it, but it's your school. I used to catch every word you said on the fly. And you've convinced me day in and day out that knowledge is the basis of everything. And of course, my future profession has a lot to live up to. Yeah, well, I'm in a good place when it comes to dates. Why did you ask me that? I don't know. No reason, I guess. I mean, at our age, you're supposed to have a boyfriend. Cindy remarked to Lisa with winning irritation. I don't recognize you. Where's your old confidence and optimism? What's age got to do with it? Lisa tried to control her excitement, but the excess of feelings and did not allow her to control herself. Cindy realized that without a good shake, she wouldn't say anything. She roused herself with a battle cry and playfully put her friend on her shoulder blades. But honestly, it's funny to watch you stay like a gymnasium girl. She laughed, and the inner stiffness disappeared. You picked up an unfortunate comparison, modern gymnasium girl, and anyone 100 points ahead will give. I just used to think that relations with the opposite sex are, to put it mildly, a closed topic for me. This is bullshit. You're the one who made the setting in your head. You just have to flip the switch and enjoy life. I knew from a series of unspoken phrases that you had something going on the personal front, and I wasn't wrong. Lisa exhaled with relief. I had hit the bullseye. Yes, I have a young man, but for lack of practical experience, I do not know how to behave with him. Like naturally, you don't have to come up with clever moves. If you really like a person, tell your secret hero. Do you like it? A sort of blissful smile appeared on the girl's face. Cindy, I don't know exactly, but I think I do. He makes me feel at ease. We can talk about anything. And honestly, I don't want to leave him. That's a very good start. And that's how love most often starts. But you shouldn't lose your head. The warnings of a friend flew by and didn't settle in the mind of a woman in love at the Mariinsky. That she was in love with Sebastian was beyond any doubt. Their first meeting resembled a plot from the novels they had read earlier. The second-year student needed to prepare an essay urgently, so she went to the university library. Sebastian was already hard at work on a similar assignment at a neighboring desk. They had crossed paths in the confusing labyrinths of the university before, but they didn't know each other intimately. This time, when Lisa appeared, Sebastian greeted her with a gesture. She answered the guy with a nod of her head with her neatly styled hair in braids and pigtails. Engrossed in their work, the young people did not notice how it became completely dark outside the windows. The reading room was empty. The librarian asked them several times to leave the room, but they asked for another minute. Realizing that her entreaties had no effect on the fanatical students, the woman turned off the lights. It was unexpected. The young people were confused and tried to find a way out in the darkness. But in an unfamiliar room, obstacles in the form of chairs, tables, and other furniture were at every turn. Sebastian laughed. And I now feel like a hero of a computer game to go to the next level, which there is a strict aunt waiting behind the door. You and I will have to hit a dozen bumps. Lisa was amused too. Their predicament is not easy. But if you and I don't make it in time, the scoreboard above the door will light up and we'll be stuck here forever. So we have to hurry before the nice lady locks the door. Give me your hand. With two of us, it'll be easier to get around all the obstacles, and we'll get an extra shot. The young man shook the girl's hand firmly and was the first to enter the path of the unknown. Immediately, the rumble of falling furniture was heard. Immediately, the light flashed, and in the doorway there was a formidable silhouette of the librarian. What on earth are you stupids doing? Sebastian nonchalantly answered the question with a question. Why did you turn off the lights? You thought we might break arms and legs in the dark. How many times do I have to warn you? What could I do if you don't understand Russian words? Lisa had no idea that a dialogue of just questions could be so interesting. In the end, the very unkind aunt promised to complain about them to the dean's office. Our university is for decent people. Such famous scientists have studied here. And you. We still have a long way to go. Who knows, maybe 10 years from now, you'll remember how you kicked out 2 Nobel laureates from your library. And believe me, you will be very ashamed of your bad deed. Sebastian gave the lady a bow, bewildered at the confusion, and they ran laughingly out into the street. Now I must see you off. Such a vivid acquaintance requires continuation. You don't mind that? Excitement filled soul and body, and Lisa in a joking tone replied, if we all started the game together, then, logically, we should move to all subsequent levels together. You know, that's a very apt comparison. But still, I really want our relationship to grow into something more than a computer game. I mean, we're not painted people. We're real people. I'm not against this development either. But there is one thing. The young man looked at the girl with surprise. Let me guess. Are you married? No. Then you're an alien, and your space transportation is coming for you right now. Also no. Then I give up. We haven't even met for sure. But now we're gonna make up for it. Besides, I know your name is Lisa. And I'm Sebastian. Lisa laughed heartily at the jokes of the guy, and from this on her face, there was a blush in her eyes, daring and sparkling. The young man openly admired her. Lisa, if you only knew how beautiful you are. I have never met such a beautiful girl before. It was the first time Lisa had ever heard such words, and she felt dizzy with happiness. After only a few weeks, Kevin and Sebastian felt a strong attachment. The young man, in his usual joking manner, explained this phenomenon as follows. Lisa, you and I are lucky to have met each other so quickly. Have you heard the beautiful legend about the novelties? Of course I have. And you're saying we're part of the same whole. Do you think otherwise? It's just that we're not scattered around the world like the others, but we're dumped in one place. I guess it was the end of the day, and they had no other option. But that could happen if we don't take the chance the angels gave us. Sebastian, you're always talking in riddles. Isn't it enough that we meet every day? The girl felt the same loving gaze of the young man again. He gently drew her to him and kissed her. I don't want to date enough. I want more than that. I want to see you every minute, to feel your breath. Lisa was silent and anxiously awaited the continuation of this love song. But Sebastian concluded his confession succinctly. Let's get married. Sebastian. And school. And what will we tell our parents? Lisa, listen to me. You and I are adults, and we have to make our own decisions. Is a passport stamp a barrier to getting a diploma? Probably not. Exactly. And tell me, why should you and I be held to a standard? Don't you want to do something without being prompted to make important decisions yourself? Sebastian. I'd like to, but how would we live normally? Trust me, there are no problems that can't be solved. My parents got married when they were students, and then I came along a year later. But that didn't stop them from getting an education and successfully moving up the career ladder. Imagine how surprised everyone will be when they find out that you and I are already a family. Perhaps it was the desire to surprise everyone that drove the young people when they decided to get married in secret without saying a word to anyone. They applied. Spring came and the whole world was born in blooming outfits. The hearts of the two lovers were also filled with spring feeling. Only on the eve of the important event, Lisa told everything to Cindy. Her friend couldn't come to her senses for about 10 minutes. Lisa, have you gone mad? And how does it manifest itself? Well, for example, tell me, what are you going to go to the registry office in jeans and a t-shirt? And instead of a photo in your head will be adorned with a baseball cap with some stupid English inscription on it. The bride's confidence faded a little, but she didn't give up. You make it sound like I have nothing to wear. I have a decent, classic suit and a good pair of shoes. By the way, I came to you hoping to find support and help. Did you? And I owe you an emergency fix for your shortcomings. Tell me, what sins do you give your parents for? Don't you get it in your formula-filled head? What's the most important event in their lives? The wedding of their only daughter. I don't know how things are in Sebastian's family, of course, but I'm sure his folks would be shocked too. Clara realized that her friend was right. And what would you do if you were me? I'll never be in your shoes, because I'm not that frivolous, but I would advise you to reschedule. No, Cindy, they say it's bad luck. At Cindy's insistence, the newlyweds to be urgently called their parents to make sure the wedding ceremony was as good as the others. They had to use a rental service, but the parents of the bride and groom never fully came to their senses. They hardly understood what was going on. Therefore, all questions had to be settled by Cindy. When the perpetrators of the commotion and put their signatures in the registry office, David, not without irony, asked, "And where do our newlyweds plan to spend their honeymoon?" Lisa and Sebastian looked at each other in confusion, but the new husband was more resourceful. "We'll pass our exams and go on a construction crew." John liked his son's idea of family life. "When I was his age, I was just as bold and brash." By the way, not a bad option for newlyweds. It's all about romance, living in tents, mosquitoes, shared meals, and a lot of very hard work. The man turned to the bride's parents. "I'm the one who's teasing their offspring about me. I got married when I was a student." Christina, Sebastian's mom, contributed to the discussion of an important issue. "John, that was a very different time. And now, look at all the ugly things going on around here. Sometimes you don't want to look." Miranda was agreeing out of a sense of female solidarity, and only David remained silent. The newlyweds sat quietly, silent. The important event was celebrated in a small restaurant where there was no one else but the wedding party. Sebastian's mother continued to express her dissatisfaction with modern life, but she was clearly bringing the conversation to something more important. Finally, she easily pushed her husband away. "John, what are you all agonizing under your breath? You're not going to let our children wander around in tents, being eaten by merciless mosquitoes." John glanced in the direction of the newlyweds. "Christina, a construction crew is great. It's a great option for extreme athletes. If they're so independent, let them deal with their problems from now on and take responsibility for their rash actions." "But John is our only son," David calmly said. "Friends, let's raise our glasses to the young ones, even though they have put Piggy in our hands. Let's forgive them that little thing." Advice and love. Cindy cheerfully shouted bittersweet. After the toasts in honor of the newlyweds, Kevin's father took the floor again. "My wife and I have decided to take care of their lodgings. I've already booked a hotel room for 2 nights. Now we just need to find a cheap place to stay. They can't go to a hostel." John shook his head and repeated for the 3rd time in one evening that his son went to him. "It's not for nothing they say genes don't set a finger, for I am a son. Thank you, brother-in-law. I fully support you. Frankly, I really do not want to send their construction team somewhere closer to the swamps, but by the example of matchmaker forced to show mercy, we'll organize a trip for 2 to somewhere tropical." For the first time all evening, the newlyweds have raised their voices. "Yay, we're going on a real wedding trip, although not without adventure." Their married life began romantically, but the sweet period ended quickly and flowed these then later. Gray everyday life. The pitfalls of family life began to appear at once, although the parents always kept their shoulders in readiness to set them up in time. The young couple had a hard time. After all, lectures, credits, and sessions were not combined with a normal family life. And then there was pregnancy. Baranki forced to adjust plans for the near future. The future mother's well-being caused alarm, and Sebastian decisively stated, "We must take an academic." But the parents of the young couple were categorically against such a decision. Christina especially insisted on continuing her studies. In no case should we take a break in their studies. Then it will be even more difficult. Miranda supported Sebastian's mom. "I'm going to take a well-deserved vacation in a few months. Of course, I still wanted to work, but for the sake of the children I will go as I should. I'll help them. Let them study, and I'll take care of my grandchildren." The young couple accepted such a generous gift with delight. But as time went on, more and more sacrifices were required. Kevin and Sebastian saw them as an obligatory step on the part of the older generation. Parental help made their lives so easy that after Kevin was born, they decided to have another child just 3 years later. This time there was a girl, in whom both grandmothers did not devote their souls. Miranda and Christina practically lived in the house of their children. What caused dissatisfaction with the men? John was the most resentful. Christina, how many times do you have to coddle them? Don't you think our children are sitting on our heads and feet shining? The woman tried to resist, but it was obvious that for several years she was very tired. John, I understand your outrage, but who's going to help them if not us? Sebastian is traveling alone with 2 kids and a job, so let her quit her job and take care of her family. John, think about what you're saying. What are they gonna live on? You should have thought of that before. Besides, Sebastian makes good money, and if you moderate your appetites a little, you can live on his salary. Lisa, she's very talented and has a brilliant career ahead of her. A woman has to choose between work and family. Christina resented it. All these years living with you, I didn't realize, John, that you hold such beliefs. Lisa's parents also argued about it. Only the discussions weren't as heated, but despite the frankly dependent behavior of young people, the parents made more and more sacrifices on the altar of their family happiness. Meanwhile, the relationship between the spouses had also cracked. Sometimes Lisa did not recognize her husband. She could not understand where his cheerfulness and trademark jokes. More and more often the head of the family came home irritated and, not to spoil anyone's mood, locked himself in his office. The family has long since replaced the rented accommodation on their own house in the Moscow region. The purchase of real estate helped parents, although from the outside everything looked prosperous. But intuition told Lisa that the family structure of her happiness is not strong, and it is about to collapse. And soon the woman received confirmation that her premonitions did not fail her. When Sebastian returned from another business trip, she began to sort through his things as a habit. No, she found no traces of lipstick, and from the shirts of her husband did not emanate the scent of French perfume. But a small business card with a Kathy's phone number on it flew out of his pants pocket. It was not in the woman's plan to cause a jealous scene, and there weren't many women with that name in the world. After all, between this and the unknown Kathy and her husband could be simply a business relationship. Driven by the best of intentions, she put the blue card in the most prominent place. But the woman hadn't expected such a violent reaction from her husband. Sebastian shouted and waved his hands in indignation. "Didn't expect you, wife, that you rolled over to something as trivial as checking my pockets." The woman was dumbfounded by such an onslaught. "Sebastian, why are you yelling at me? That card just fell out of my pocket, and I don't recognize you lately. You haven't been the same." Scared by the parents yelling, Kevin came out of the nursery. "Mom, are you and Dad fighting?" "No, son, we're just talking. The girl said you were fighting, so I thought I'd take a look." "It's okay. Go to your room." The man calmed down a little, but he decided to set the record straight. "Lisa, I'm warning you if I see anything else." The woman's eyes darkened, and she wished she had followed Cindy's example. Now she wanted to scream at her husband, but she stifled her anger and cut off the torrent of threats and reproaches. "Don't you ever speak like that again. This is a warning." It worked on Sebastian, but from that day on, the relationship between the couple deteriorated completely. So Lisa decided not to tell Sebastian that she was pregnant again. Women did not lose hope that they're in a cozy home again shines star happiness. Not for nothing in the people say that trouble never walks alone. Tense relations in the family and unresolved issues with the third pregnancy supplemented another unpleasant event. No sooner had the New Year holidays died down than Sebastian's father called. "Son, urgently come with Mom. She is in intensive care." John did not explain over the phone what had happened, but from his tone Sebastian realized that the situation was serious. He threw to his wife, "I'll take the car." "Sebastian, but it's dangerous. The roads are icy. It's better to take the train." The man looked at his wife as if he wanted to live her with his eyes. "Don't you realize my mom's in intensive care? She's not well at all. Please don't yell at me. I'm worried about you. I'm sick and tired of your unrelenting concern. In the morning, the accident found out that Sebastian didn't make it. His mother-in-law died of a massive stroke without regaining consciousness. The husband took this loss very hard. He completely withdrew into his grief and stopped even communicating with his children. But Lisa had to urgently solve the issue of her pregnancy. It was impossible to postpone it. When her husband returned late at night, he found Lisa in the living room. He grumbled unhappily. "What are you doing up so late?" "Sebastian, we need to talk." "Not this. Can't you see I'm falling asleep? I'm not celebrating either. I have a life, and I've got kids on my hands. You don't take an interest in their affairs, and they resent you, especially Kevin." The man sank down tiredly on the couch next to his wife. For a second, it seemed to Lisa that everything was back to normal. Sebastian drew his wife to him. "I'm sorry, I've been hurting you a lot lately. But it's the cost of our existence. My mom's death has taken a toll on me." "Sebastian, I understand. I'm not myself sometimes, but we can't do this alone. That's for sure. Our moms have been a great help, and now we have to make it on our own. It's okay, we can do it. The older kids are big." "So stop, Lisa. You said older kids. What does that mean?" "I'm pregnant, and I need to do something about it, because I'm critical." The woman didn't expect the news to send her husband into a frenzy. "It amazes me that you're a grown woman, and sometimes you act like a 5-year-old child. Don't you realize we don't need this child? Why did you wait till the last minute?" Tears, resentment, and hot streams flowed down my cheeks. Against her better judgment, Lisa began to justify herself to her husband. "Well, you're always walking around, disgruntled. I was just afraid to approach you. I was waiting for the right moment." Then disaster struck, and one thing led to another. Sebastian pointed to his wife's stomach. "That's where the real disaster is. You shouldn't have let this pregnancy happen. But let me tell you, I wasn't the only one involved. I get the feeling sometimes that you do things on purpose to spite me." "Sebastian, how can you say that? It's our child together, and it's certainly not his fault. I'm not going to argue with you about this, but my decision is clear. You need to get rid of this pregnancy. We've had enough of 2 children." The next day, Lisa was in for another blow. She went to the clinic, and after a checkup, the doctor said, "Sweetheart, you're too late. Your due date is a good 14 weeks, and you'll soon feel the stirrings. So you're gonna have to have this baby." "Well, my husband doesn't want to. I can't help it. What are you so afraid of? I can see from your story that you're not poor. Does another baby really burden you? Children are our joys. They are our continuity." After her doctor's appointment, Lisa decided to visit Cindy. She lived across town with her husband and her son Ivan, who was a year younger than Kevin. When she saw Lisa, she was overjoyed. "Oh, how many years, how many winters. What wind brought you here? I heard you had an accident. I'm sorry for your loss." All these obligatory Cindy phrases I said at once. Only then did she invite her friend into the house. "Tell me what you've come to tell me." "I'm having another baby." "Well, that's great. You're tearing up." "Sebastian is totally against it. He ordered me to get rid of this pregnancy." Life changes people beyond recognition. I mean, not so long ago, you were such a nice young man, a real role model. I watched your touching relationship and dreamed of such love. Clara shared my worries with my friend, and at the same time paid on her shoulder. "Thank you, Cindy. For what? For what you are. Oh, come on. You don't have to worry too much about men. They're all like that, and you can't change it. You just have to know how to turn the situation in your favor." "I don't know what you're trying to say." "Well, for one thing, have a seizure or something. Make him worry." "Thanks for the advice, but I can't do that." "Suit yourself, but stop by if you need anything." Sebastian seemed to have forgotten about his conversation with his wife. He would leave again for business trips, and then return, always in a bad mood. Bavaria tried to keep her balance for the sake of the children's peace of mind. The woman diligently threw wood into the almost dead fire of family happiness. But the fire did not want to ignite. 2 months passed and the growing belly became visible even under loose clothes. Once at dinner, my husband said with apparent calmness, "You still did your own thing." Sebastian, it was too late. No one wanted to do the operation. Isn't there any other way? Herbs and pills. Lisa was horrified. You're an educated man, and you're offering me medieval methods to get rid of your own child. If anything happens to me, have you thought of Kevin? The man was embarrassed. He realized he'd said something unnecessary. I'm sorry, I really did say something mean without thinking. Things calmed down for a while. In the summer, she gave birth to another baby boy in a bar, and Sebastian was even happy about his wife's gift. It's a coincidence that father and son have the same birthday. Christopher will grow up. We'll celebrate together. By the time he grows up, you'll be a grand old man. That's the wrong answer. I'm only 33 now. That's the age of Christ, which is symbolic in itself. They sell hard liquor in the store at 18. And the fact that doing some simple math, you're 51 years old, and that's the best age for a man. For the second time in the years of marriage, Lisa observed a miraculous transformation. Always nagging, whose husband that former Sebastian, with whom she was easy and cozy. With all her strength, women tried to keep this fragile happiness. After work, Sebastian spent the whole evening with little Christopher. He played with him and rejoiced at his son's successes. Kevin also took an active part in the upbringing of the youngest member of the family. But this family idyll did not last long. Soon Sebastian started coming home at night again. One day he disappeared for 2 days. Her imagination painted the most terrible pictures, and Lisa began to call her husband's friends and colleagues. But no one knew where her husband had disappeared to. She already wanted to call the police to start a search for the missing man. How did Sebastian show up on his own? He brushed off the questions of his children, who were also worried about their father, with irritation. And he lashed out at his wife. "You're making a big fuss and scaring the kids. I'm scaring the kids. You disappeared from the house without a word to me. You could have called me. Or don't you care about anyone? Lisa, you're just annoying me with your habit of making things worse." Another woman would have realized the cause of our problems a long time ago. You're in naive ignorance, or pretending not to understand because it's more convenient. I'm sorry, what am I supposed to understand? Well, I'll tell you, but no offense. I'm sick of this gray existence. Look at yourself in the mirror. Haven't you ever been told you look like a gray mouse? You're not even trying to change. I'm sick of mediocrity. I want bright colors and bright feelings. She looked at Sebastian and couldn't believe it was him, her beloved husband, saying such hurtful words. "Sebastian, come to your senses. What are you talking about?" "I've already come to my senses, and that's why I'm leaving." The man took out a travel bag and began to throw his things into it. Lisa couldn't move. She could not believe that this was happening to her. "Sebastian, what about the kids?" "Don't worry about the kids. I'm taking care of them. And by the way, I'm being very noble because I'm leaving the house to you." "Where are you going?" "I mean, where are you going to live?" "That's none of your business. I've met a woman who makes my heart beat." With a confident gait, Sebastian headed for the door, but when he remembered something, he turned around to get the rest of his things. "I'll come back tomorrow. And don't try to look for me. We're breaking up for good. It's best for everyone." The door slammed. A minute later, there was a mighty roar of the engine, and the black SUV disappeared into the darkness of the winter night. "Mommy, Daddy left us." The daughter looked at her mother, fear in her eyes. "How are we going to live without Daddy now?" Kevin took his sister's hand. "We'll be fine. There are still real men in the house. Mom, if he comes, I won't let him in." Lisa, still hoping for the best, tried to soften the drama of the situation. "Son, you can't talk about Dad like that. He's not a father. He's a traitor." It was only a few days later that Lisa fully realized the extent of her personal catastrophe. Everything was falling out of her hands, and the children demanded a mother's care and attention. 1.5-year-old Christopher was particularly vulnerable. So Lisa was left with nothing else to do. How do I call Cindy? She rushed over. You meet the rescue team. We'll stay with you for a couple days until things settle down. Have you called your parents? No, it's not right to bother the old folks. Then, when things calm down, we can tell them everything. Who knows, maybe your Sebastian is the right guy. Okay, I won't talk in front of the kids, but as a rule, most unfaithful husbands. Then beaten, humiliated, they go back to their nest. Sebastian's not coming back. You're almost 100% sure. So there's still a little hope for the return of the prodigal parrot. I'm sorry, I didn't think it through. Well, we'll see. Our head of household is at a training camp. So we're gonna be loud and happy. We're gonna stay with you guys. We'll save on utilities. Cindy winked at her friend, and she smiled at Cindy. I'm amazed at your ability to see the bright side of every situation. Because I'm an optimist, and you need to do something about it. Otherwise, you're a mess. From that day on, Cindy took full responsibility for her friend's house and its tenants. She advised Lisa to take a vacation to get used to her new surroundings. Cindy actively set about transforming her friend's life. Lisa, you need to completely change all your settings. I know it's hard, but you have to try. Lisa tried to resist the over-exuberant activities of her savior Nice. Listen, Cindy, I'm about to turn 33, and I don't think it's possible. What you're suggesting. I agree that you have to do something about your appearance. You can buy fancy clothes, but how do you change yourself on the inside? If you want it bad enough, you can do anything. Motivated people who can do things that you can't believe. Of course, it's hard to do it alone, but I know someone who can help you. Lisa's alert. I didn't think you'd send me to a therapist. What's wrong with that? People sometimes don't realize the seriousness of their problems. A competent therapist can determine the depth and cause of the problem at a glance. No, I'm not going. Calm down. I have a friend of mine. We studied together. He specializes in women's problems. But if you don't want to go, then I'll leave you alone. But I'd like you to do it. Trust me, you'll thank me later. And I have to think about it. So you can ride your mind-blowing car and think, and we'll cook dinner for the starving elves. Kathy enthusiastically bounced Cindy and me around, having so much fun. What are elves? They are very small people, but they can do all sorts of wonderful things. They can even turn people into bugs. Well, they can only do that to a bad person. And with Aunt Betty, the women looked at each other. Who's that? Kathy looked at her mother and her friend as if they were bugs. Like you don't know. Aunt Betty is Daddy's girlfriend. I saw her when Daddy and I went to the store to get food for Christopher. She had black hair, but I didn't like her. Cindy was interested in Kathy's story. Why is she mean? No, she's faking it, telling me how cute she is, but her eyes are evil. My mom is 1,000 times prettier. Lisa's daughter's compliment made Lisa's heart feel better. Okay, Cindy, I don't want to hear any more about doctor's aunts. I'm going to take your advice and go for a little breeze. Over 2 o'clock, Lisa circled the town. She sang songs, talked to her husband, who treated her for some Aunt Betty with black hair. And all the resentment of a silent night, she came home. The children were already asleep, and only Cindy was waiting for her in the kitchen. Well, blowing off steam. Thanks for the advice. I'm feeling remarkably light right now. I'm going to take your option. I really need to change my life completely. The trouble is, the grayness has gotten into me and won't let me change. Lisa had never been so worried. She was waiting for her turn in a soft chair, more like a big ball, with the same soft, dim light pouring down on her from above. The atmosphere was very comfortable and the tension disappeared, but the door opened. A tall man in an expensive suit, the color of wet asphalt, invited her in. Come in, please. Your friend and I are longtime buddies, and Cindy filled me in a bit on your history. Lisa nodded and felt a treacherous shiver run through her body. The man sat down across from her so that his brown eyes took in the full spectrum of the view. Don't be afraid, I'm not a real doctor. Who is? Simply put, I'm a problem specialist. I know where they hide and how to deal with them. That's all. Isn't that enough? See, you've even stopped shaking. That's a good thing, so we can communicate more easily. Lisa, I should introduce myself, Charles. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I love the company of women in general. But it's not because I'm a sucker or a slacker. It's just that there really is a mystery in every woman. Sometimes she's the cause of serious problems, and you know how to solve them. Do you always succeed? I'm not gonna lie to you. Not always, but a lot depends on trust. If a client trusts me as a specialist, a positive result is usually guaranteed. And how long will the treatment last? And how much will it cost me? Lisa, this is not a treatment in the direct sense of the term. I have been dealing with the problems of modern women for a long time, and I have my own system of solutions. No medications, all surgeries and other types of influence will not threaten you either. Then what is the point? You and I will try to find the key to your personal mystery, which is hiding inside. Although she didn't fully understand what Charles was saying, she was intrigued by his proposal. I agree, and I'll do whatever you say. That's fine. Then from tomorrow, you start keeping a diary. Buy a general school notebook in the Department of Goods and write in it all your thoughts, fears, worries. Be sure to record events in the house family and at work. In other words, write down in a notebook everything that comes to mind. And what will come out of it, we will see together later. But I'm sure it will be entertaining. Did you like to write essays in high school? Yes. I wrote for half the class. I couldn't say no, even though I knew it was wrong. And you blame yourself for that? Yes, a little bit. My husband left me with 3 kids and I can't shake the guilt. I'll definitely help you. But first, you have to get creative. Lisa bought a notebook and a whole pack of pens. She thought Charles was very strange, but she decided to try his method on herself. At home, she opened the notebook and froze. Her mind was completely blank. She took them away. So Lisa, what's next? And then it occurred to her that the first entry should be a description of this very fear, the fear of the white sheet. When Lisa looked up, she realized that it had been 2 hours, no less. Lisa looked in amazement at the notebook, in which at least 20 pages had been written down. What a mother you gave me. She quickly turned off the light and went to bed. Memoirs are memoirs about sleep and work. In the morning, Lisa almost overslept. But she had no panic. She ran merrily around the house, pushing the children up the stairs. Cindy's lurched. Cindy appeared. She watched her friend in amazement. Var, what's the matter with you? What are you carrying yourself like a propeller? Oh, Cindy, good morning. Come have breakfast with us. Cindy kept watching Lisa, while Lisa was simultaneously dyeing her eyelashes and telling Kevin what to buy after school. When Lisa arrived at work, she realized that she was missing her notebook. It turns out there is so much going on around her, and she hadn't seen it before. Now the woman in her head instantly compiled her attitude to what was happening, and very much did not want to forget it all. Take, for example, their janitor. He smiled every morning, but invariably without opening his mouth. She used to think it was just a peculiarity of the man. And then it turned out that the janitor just had a constant breathalyzer. Lisa had disliked him, but someone on the staff said that that transition hurt the whole family, so it's easier for him to live like that. The week flew by. Cindy looked with interest at how her friend in the evenings diligently writes something in a notebook. One day she couldn't take it anymore. Look, you look like a schoolgirl. All that's left is your tongue. Lisa laughed. You know, I was so fascinated by what Charles suggested that I think I might write a book. Cindy sat down across from her. So what's the deal? Go ahead and write it. Oh, come on. What book? Cindy calmly poured herself some water from a glass. I can't see why not. But Cindy, I'm not a writer. No answer accepted. No one is born one. A writer is immediately given. Oh, come on. Who cares about the experiences of a gray mouse? Cindy grinned. I've never understood why you don't like yourself. Do I? Why don't I love myself? But her friend didn't let her finish. But look, you know perfectly well that you have the most ordinary appearance. But you're smart and could not fail to realize that nowadays you can make anything out of such appearance. It's only worth spending a little money on a makeup stylist. Next, everyone always predicted you a stunning career, but you had Sebastian at the top of your list. I can't understand why. And now you didn't even think about what I said. You just said you couldn't do it. And why didn't you answer my question? Lisa was, frankly, confused. She hadn't expected her friend to say that. Cindy. Why Cindy? Who would tell you all this if not me? Lisa stared confusedly in front of her. It seemed the shakeups in her life were just beginning. She wrote even longer today, writing about herself, about Cindy, about their meeting, about the fear that was in her as she was dragged to the street bathroom, fell asleep with notebook in hand. The next day, she had to visit Charles. She waited again in a kind of frantic excitement, and when he sat down in front of her, she immediately calmed down. But what? How are we doing? Don't be shy. Tell me. Even if you've only written 4 pages, that's already progress. Lisa suddenly laughed. You know, Charles, until I started writing all this down, I was sure I was living a boring, gray life. Now my confidence is shaken. A man suddenly said, Lisa, has anyone ever told you? What a charming smile you have. No, I don't know. I don't remember. She was embarrassed for some reason and put the notebook in front of him. He took it in his hands, looked at her in surprise. Oh, you're good. What's up? Let's deal with what hasn't stopped gnawing at you. Lisa shook her head. You know, I'd like you to read this without me. And then maybe we can talk about it. Well, that's fine. You don't think you're done yet. Do you have more to write? She nodded her head. I never realized that there are so many different big and small events around you if you don't just list what happened in a day. And if you reflect on it, you sometimes come to the most unexpected conclusions. That's good. Tell me, has your attitude toward any of these events changed since you wrote about them? Lisa nodded. I saw a lot of things from the outside. You know, it even seemed to me that I could change some things, help some things. So what is it? Don't be afraid to offer your help. Don't be afraid to do things you haven't done before. You're about to change, aren't you? They talked for about an hour. Charles didn't seem to say anything, but she felt really energized. Lisa ran into the store and wanted to buy a notebook, but after some thought, she decided to get 3. If she barely had enough for a whole notebook for a week, how much more would she need? No one knows. She walked out and wanted to go to her car, but the sign for the Lily Beauty Salon caught her eye. She had always loved lilies. Lisa hesitated. She always went to the same hairdresser, the same manicurist. Then she walked resolutely to the car, put the notebooks on the seat, and closed the car. Hello. Come in, please. A woman of her years looked at her, except she was bright and interesting, and even though her hair color was a little off, and her lips a little brighter than decorum dictated. But the woman was a real eye-catcher. After Lisa sat down in the chair, the woman asked, "What are we gonna do?" "No." You know, Lisa turned to her. "I'd like to change things. I've had enough of this." "Oh, that's very interesting." She turned Lisa to the mirror and stared at her reflection thoughtfully as she continued talking. "I studied and then worked in the capital. I studied not just to be a hairdresser, but a master of images. Then I fell in love and got married. I moved here. But apart from the details, no one here wants to do anything chemical. No, don't think I regret anything. I love my husband very much, but sometimes you just want something like this. Wedding images are the only thing that takes a little professional pressure off. That's it. I know what I have to do. My name is Adriana, by the way." 200 hours later, Adriana turned Lisa over to the mirror. "I didn't jump right in. That's enough for your first makeover. Something tells me you won't stop there." Lisa opened her eyes and almost cried out. It was her, and it wasn't her. Her hair had turned a very dark chocolate color. But when I move it, there are strands of light color peeking through here and there, a couple shades lighter. It makes it look like a really thick head of hair. Adriana had them done, and now they were shoulder length and very successfully covered the ears. The eyebrows were terminated as if they were the natural shade of your lashes, as if you had thickened them. I didn't put makeup on you. In the first place, it would be more of a shock to you. And secondly, I think you look great. Lisa finally got some air. And this won't wash off. Adriana laughed. Well, of course not. But I would advise you to come back at least once a month to renew the light. Lisa stepped out of the salon and saw Charles emerge from the building across the street. She smiled, waved at him, and got into her car. Lisa herself did not know why her soul sang like that. Lisa entered the house. Apparently Cindy, along with the children, had plotted to blow it past. Kevin whizzed by. Somewhere in the other room, Lena was squealing and Cindy was laughing. Then Kevin came back. "Hi, Mom." He stood there staring at her, stunned. He was called out of the room several times. He didn't answer. Then Kathy's head appeared in the doorway. "Hi, Kathy." She didn't finish. She looked at her mother as if she was seeing her for the first time. Cindy, having waited for no one, also appeared in the hallway, followed by the youngest members of the two families. Cindy exhaled noisily. Wow. Lisa was getting a little uncomfortable with the feeding. Is anyone going to feed me? Everyone made a lot of noise. Kevin and Cindy rushed into the kitchen, and Kathy came over to her. "Mommy, you look beautiful." "Thank you, my sunshine." Dinner was a lively affair. It was probably the very first night that no one remembered Sebastian once. As soon as Lisa entered the office, there was complete silence. "Good morning." Cindy had, of course, warned her that there would be a reaction, but Lisa had never imagined it would be this strong. Until lunchtime, her coworkers only squinted at her and occasionally asked her something work-related, and just before lunch, their famous heartthrob, Robert, approached her. "Lisa's, I was wondering if we could have lunch together." She looked up at him in surprise. Robert had never liked her, despite the fact that the entire female population, the offices, those under 30, just slept and saw themselves next to Robert. And he was really good, tall, moderately muscular, always dressed in style, and in a way that emphasized his masculinity. And he was also pompous and shallow at work. He did his job and didn't care about anything else. But that's Lisa's opinion. "Thank you, Robert. I'm fine. I'm having lunch alone." She smiled charmingly at him and inwardly froze with horror. How could she do such a thing? Such a handsome man, just for paying attention to her, and therefore giving her confidence. She must not only dine with him, but also pay for those lunches. Robert stared at her in amazement. The coworkers chuckled quietly. It was especially funny to those whom Robert had already dumped. He walked over to his desk and sat down. It was obvious that the young man was at a loss and just didn't know what to do next. Lisa had already gotten up to go to lunch when the secretary entered the office. "Lisa, you are in charge." Lisa was scared out of habit and almost sat down. But then she thought, why should she be afraid? Her work is in order. No one's private life should be anyone's business. Rick called. "Sit down, Lisa." I didn't. He asked me to come in. Lisa sat down, not understanding what the man in charge wanted from her. "Lisa, I've been keeping an eye on my employees. And you know, you've always made me happy. And when have you ever not been broken by family problems? I'm sorry, but I'm aware of that. So it hasn't affected your work in any way. I realized you were exactly the person I needed." She asked. "I'm sorry, but I'm a little confused." "Needed for what?" "My deputy took a well-deserved vacation. I can't do it alone, of course. No one wants to live on the job, and you have all the prerequisites to take this position." Lisa was a little taken aback. Just like that, to be deputy director. At least she had the education to do it. but for some reason she hadn't even thought that she could really make a career out of it before. Now it's right in front of her. Grab it and enjoy it. She refused. Rick, I really appreciate the offer, and I know I can do it. But in case you haven't forgotten, I have 3 children. To give you an answer so I don't let you down in the future, I need to talk to my parents. You realize if they can't take on at least a junior, I can't take you up on your offer. That's what I like about you. You're sensible and sober, and that's worth a lot. And I'm letting you go home tonight. Work out your problems. Talk to your parents. I'll see you tomorrow with an answer. Lisa caught Cindy packing. Where are you going? Var, I'm sorry. My husband's coming back. I'll visit you often, but you know he won't understand my absence. What's wrong with you? You're all disheveled. Yeah, I came in early. Lisa told me about the boss's offer. Cindy reached out. What can I say? Girl, I believe in you. I'm sure everything's gonna be okay now. The only thing left to do is to believe in yourself. Lisa looked up at her friend. I do. I almost do. They hugged goodbye. The most important thing is that you go like this. Don't give yourself time to beat yourself up and dig into yourself, Lisa laughed. So how are you doing with your friend Charles? Cindy gave her a sly look. Speaking of which, why did he call me and ask me a bunch of stupid questions that were all about you? Lisa was confused. Maybe what she wrote is the ramblings of a deranged person, and he wants to make sure so he can send her on to treatment. I ran away, my friend. In the evening, the children gathered in the kitchen. Mom, what's the occasion? Yeah, Grandma and Grandpa are coming over. Kevin looked at Kathy, then at Mom. But they don't know about Dad. They'll find out. Are you guys gonna help me or not? We're all going together. They had just had time to set the table when the doorbell rang. Miranda immediately began to reread it. Jesus, it's only been a little while, and you were waving like that. And Daddy looked at Lisa. Daughter, I can't even recognize you. What's the matter with you? A new life. He chuckled and walked into the room. Oh, we're getting a royal welcome today. Miranda turned to Lisa with her daughter. We forgot something. The woman was frantically going over birthdays and other dates in her head. Mommy, come in. You haven't forgotten anything. Everyone sat down at the table. The youngest, as usual, climbed into grandfather's lap, smiled. What about champagne? David looked at his daughter more carefully. I know you too well. Tell me what happened. But Miranda intervened. Where's Sebastian? He hasn't been home lately. That's no way for a father of 3 to behave. Kathy started crying. Kevin took his mother's hand. Lisa stroked his head. Thank you. It's okay. Mom, Dad, Sebastian left us. David quacked. Even slammed his fist down on the table like he killed a cockroach. Miranda clutched at her heart. Mom, it's okay. We're getting used to living without him. I've gathered you for an entirely different reason. The woman looked at her daughter in amazement. How can you say that? You have to bring your husband back into the family. David wrinkled his nose, but didn't interrupt his wife. Mom, I'm not going to bring anyone back. It was his wish. He's happily living with some new woman. I filed for a divorce today, but I need your help. Daughter, you know that. I was offered a new position today. She said Daddy was admiring her. He said his daughter would show everyone. And gray mice are capable of something, especially since she looks different today. She doesn't look like a gray mouse at all. Her parents offered to move in with her for the cold season. The kids need to cook. And it's getting dark early. Mom, Dad, I never dreamed you'd help me so much. The next visit to Charles was on a weekend. Clara looked at the 2 scribbled notebooks with a smile. Charles was right. As soon as she wrote her problem, her fear, on a blank sheet of paper, it didn't seem so big. Charles didn't have to wait this time. He was waiting for her in his office. Lisa, I have a suggestion. Let's talk somewhere else today. She froze. I can see how scared you are. What is it? And she laughed out of the blue. It's my surprise. It's my pleasure. They were sitting in a cafe overlooking the park. Autumn is a beautiful couple. Charles looked at her. You've changed a lot. And not just in appearance. You know, I even regret resisting Cindy. The man smiled. Cindy, you can't resist. You must realize that. Sooner or later we were destined to meet. Tell me, I've read your diary. Is it true she saved you like that? Yes, I myself still remember her screams and her enemies lying there. Of course, it's impossible to describe in words. No, you're wrong about that. You write in such vivid language. It's as if I imagined myself there. I even had an itch to break up the whole bunch of assholes. No way. I didn't even realize I'd written it, to be honest. I wasn't thinking on purpose. Lisa, I was wondering if I could show your diary to someone. He's some kind of rich philanthropist, writer, hermit. I can think of a lot of other epithets for him. I promise, if you don't want to, we'll stop anytime. Stop that, you know. Your notes would make a very good book, a guide to action for women who've lost themselves, written in artistic, very clear language. But I am a person far from all this. That's why I would like to show your writings to the pros. Lisa was expecting anything but this. Oh, Cindy, didn't she put the idea in Charles' head? It doesn't look like much, though. It's good to change, so change everything. Let's give it a try. This is great. That's just great. Lisa, let's use the first name, and we should drink champagne for that. After the cafe, they took a long walk. Charles told how Little always stood up for justice, got for it in kindergarten, at school, and at home. Lisa laughed. Did they teach you to be fair? No, on the contrary. I guess I don't have a good temper. They tell me. And I'm still, I think, razor sharp. Say, Lisa, could we go to the movies or the theater with you? It's so hard to meet a woman who's interesting to talk to. I've had a lot of women come to see me. But frankly, I think of them all as patients. I can't think of you. I've never been to the movies. Clara wondered. When had she ever been to the movies? Probably when she and Sebastian didn't even have Kevin yet. I haven't been to a movie in a long time. It's beautiful. No, not that you haven't been to a movie in a long time. It's that I'd love to take you. One evening, Miranda asked Lisa if Sebastian had called. Lisa turned to her in surprise. No, why would he call? Well, anyway, I met him by chance yesterday at the mall. He was with his girlfriend. But there was nowhere to hide. So he had to say hello. So it's his what? No. You know, I felt sorry for him. No, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. He was confused, scared. Lisa was about to answer, but then she didn't. She knew perfectly well that her mother was worried about her. That's what a mother is. Charles had disappeared. I don't know where. After that trip to the movies, he brought her home and kissed her. She responded with such fervor that there was no way they could break up. Apparently, the man is all the same smart, weighed all the pros and cons, decided that 3 children for him too much jam, blamed him. She was sure it wasn't because she was a gray mouse. The doorbell rang. The mother looked up. Who is it so late? Lisa went to open it. But as soon as she opened the door, she was surrounded. So she was frightened. Lisa, he takes over everything, and the proofreading and the publishing. He's sure it's going to be a real bestseller. Charles, put me down immediately. Charles set it down on the floor and looked at the household, who were speaking of the commotion with embarrassment. David looked at Charles. I understand we need to set the table for tea. The young man will tell us who he is and why he is carrying our daughter around like that. An hour later, the father paced nervously around the room. I knew my daughter was being watched by everyone. But Lisa, we are all with you. Keep that in mind. She was confused. Actually, her profession doesn't tolerate any philosophizing. Everything has to be precisely calculated and measured. And here it was. On the eve of the presentation, she was worried. As she never worried, never thought of anything better. How to take a pen, a clean notebook, and write a diary of a single woman. Part 2. Really, It didn't work to start writing. The doorbell rang. Sebastian stood on the doorstep. How many times had she imagined this meeting, but she was still confused. "Can I come out?" "Come in, of course." "But the children aren't here yet. I wanted to talk to you." "To me. But I thought we worked things out. I gave up child support. I gave up the house." "What other questions?" He looked at her in surprise. "Have you changed? The teachers were good. Would you like some tea?" "Yes, if I may." He came to the kitchen. "You changed the furniture in the bar." For some reason it was nice to see his changed face. Yeah, it wasn't fancy. It's old. It's expensive. Well, I make a good living." He scrutinized his ex-wife. Something about her that made it hard for him to talk. And then he realized there was no sadness in her eyes, and she looked better than when they lived together. "Lisa, I don't know how to start this conversation. I just came to ask you out. What about your Betty?" "Sort of." Sebastian wrinkled his nose. "Betty wasn't quite what she was at first. So you decided to go back to where you were safe and happy." "Don't twist Lisa's arm." "No way. And yet I can't. I don't have any time. I have a presentation tomorrow." He didn't let her finish. He got excited. "So am I. I mean, we'll be there." "Don't you think that's a sign?" "Why are you going?" "I mean, you've never been a big fan of this kind of thing." "But Betty, she loves being the center of attention." Sebastian's totally embarrassed. "Sebastian, go home. The kids will be here soon. I don't want them to be upset." He obediently got up. "Well, I'll see you tomorrow." She shrugged uncertainly. Lisa, in a silver slinky dress with her hair in large curls, sat in front of the mirror. Adriana was putting on the finishing touches, makeup. "Every time I start doing you, I get tons of new ideas. It's a shame you can't do it all in one look." Lisa laughed. "What kind of person would I make?" Adriana looked at her carefully. "Tell me, what's eating you?" "My ex-husband came by. He wants to come back, but he's going to tonight's event with his own. He knows you wrote Lisa's notes." "No, you don't. Then be happy. Let him fully realize who he's lost." Lisa looked at Adriana. "Are you conniving?" Adriana grinned. "No, fair." Cindy came in. "It's all ready for you later." The crowd must be overwhelming. Lisa looked out and recoiled. "And I'm not going in there." "Yes, you are. I'm all thirsty for your autograph." "Do you even know that the book sold out in 2 days?" Cindy and Adriana literally shoved her into Charles' arms. "Excuse me." They walked out into the hall to the guests, who were already enjoying appetizers and drinks to loud applause. "Just a second." Clamoring. But then she throws her head back. She's a winner, and that says it all. "Sebastian, why are you standing there like a statue? Let's get closer. I need an autograph." Betty tugged impatiently at his sleeve. He finally snapped out of his stupor. "Oh, come on. You want to go." "What? What kind of tone is that? What do you think you're doing?" He turned to Betty and said, "You want to go. But this is Lisa, my ex-wife." Betty was like walking into ice water. Somebody's been eating hogwash. "You said yourself she works in computer technology." "She does. This must have been a recreational activity." "And you didn't know?" "No, Betty didn't know." To bickering. They didn't notice Charles approaching them. Lisa was immediately followed by her parent Cindy. And of course, Kathy's children, with her usual spontaneity, said, "Daddy, didn't you believe me that Auntie was bad? See, she's hurting you too." Lisa looked at her ex-husband. They talked to her and decided she had to do it. Get rid of the guilt. The one major feeling that almost killed her. It's her fault her husband left her. "Good evening." Sebastian turned around. "Hello." Betty was silent. Lisa smiled charmingly at her. "You wanted an autograph. Let me sign it." She held out her hand for the book Betty was holding. The latter handed it back to her machine, then tossed it away to be avoided. Sebastian looked at Lisa gloomily. "What has become of you? Were you not so angry, so cruel?" That's Sebastian. It was not at all pleasant to realize that someone who had stomped someone into the dirt had not broken down, but had risen up. He looked around. Everyone makes mistakes. I made a mistake too. I want to go back. We have 3 kids, and you know they need a father. What's that all of a sudden? You didn't need a father all this time, and now you do. You're confusing the two. You're the one who thinks you have the right to choose when you want kids and when you don't. Lisa, don't you dare talk to me like that. Charles felt the Larry's hand shake and squeezed it tighter. She has to do it herself. Why? Because he couldn't find the right words. Kevin stepped forward. I can't yell at Mom. You've already turned the kids against me. Sebastian, why are you saying all this? You've never been like this before. He stopped talking. For a while, they all stood in silence. Finally, Sebastian looked for the first time at the man his ex-wife was holding under his arm. Then his gaze shifted back to Lisa. You mean you're not coming back? You don't want our family to be reunited? Lisa smiled. No. Sebastian, no. We don't have a family. Not for a long time. She turned around, and they walked toward the stage. Sebastian caught his ex-wife's mother by the arm. Miranda, you've always been smart and calm. Why don't you talk to your daughter? We should be together. The woman looked at him. No, Sebastian, it's too late. And you know, I'm glad you're divorced. That shook Lisa up. Charles literally made her believe in herself. I'm much more comfortable with Charles as a son-in-law. They're what? She's what? Yes, Sebastian, Lisa is getting married. And I'm sure that husband will never say that she is a gray mouse who is nothing. Miranda slowly walked down the hall. Sebastian watched her silently, and just yesterday, he was sure that he would be welcomed with open arms, that he would be put in the most comfortable chair and loved even more. But it all went wrong. He turned around and rushed out of the auditorium. Now he had to make peace with Betty. He can't go live with his father. He doesn't want to talk to him anyway. After Sebastian dumped Lisa. And if he finds out what happened, he won't think he's his son at all. Sebastian breathed in the cold air. An advertisement caught his eye. They were recruiting specialists for a new testing plant in Siberia. He grinned, ripped off his license plate, shoved his hands deep in his pockets, and strode down the street.